hiss at the boys, but not a cat hiss, like a human hiss. The guys make a run for it, but turn back to see the creature coming after them. Now the thing itself is a very scrawny, pale, human looking thing if anything, and I want to say it was a human. It was bipedal and had 2 arms and was coming after them, trying to get them with its arms, but it just wasn't really moving like a human. Maybe it was a very disturbed or deranged person living in the middle of the woods in a cave, I have no idea, but I would piss myself if I ran into that in a dark alley. Or a light alley for that matter, it really doesn't matter.
Starting us off at number 10, we have Kazam, otherwise known as Shaquille O'Neal. For any of you who have seen that movie, man oh man, I rewatched it recently and I do not think it holds up. But if there are Kazam fans watching, please let me know what you think down in the comments. Anyway, back to Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal was born March 6, 1972, and little did his mother know she would be giving birth to one of the most famous basketball players of all time, as well as a modern giant. Shaq clocks in at 7 feet 1 inch, which is 2.16 meters in height, and has quite the list of hilarious pictures comparing his size to other popular celebrities. One of my favorites is a picture of him with A-list comedian Kevin Hart. We all know Kevin is a shorter guy, but next to Shaq, he looks like a tiny villager. Luckily for Kevin, Shaq is just one large friendly giant unless he's on the court. Shaq no longer plays basketball, but is now a sports analyst on NBA-related TV shows, and even though nowadays he's usually seen just sitting at a desk, this man is still a giant.
Number 9, Giuseppe Tartini. Everybody wants to be the best at something, but for Tartini, the best just wasn't good enough. Tartini was born on April 8th, 1692, and the guy might as well have been born with a violin in his hand. He was brilliant, a brilliant musician and composer, and he thought so too, until one day he heard someone playing the instrument he dedicated his life to with a kind of expertise that he had never heard. This sent him spiraling, and for 12 days, Tartini locked himself away, practicing all hours of the day. While he drove himself mad, the devil decided to pay a visit to a desperate soul in a dream. He offered to make Tartini the most masterful violinist in the world in exchange for his soul. Like the wise guy he was, he asked for a demonstration, so the devil picked up the instrument and played a sonata with ease and beauty like nothing he'd ever heard before. When Giuseppe awoke, he scrambled to write down the sonata, which has become easily one of his most popular pieces of work. Its name? The Devil's Trill, and I listened to it and it is beautiful. For his entire career though, Tartini remained frustrated with the piece, as he was never able to play it exactly as he had heard it. This story is a reminder to never make a deal with the devil, as you never really get what you asked for.
At number 8, we're going back to the NBA with a basketball superstar, Yao Ming. This famous NBA superstar was born September 12, 1980 in Shanghai, China. Yao Ming's height is an incredible 7 feet 6 inches or 229 centimeters. This giant featherless being has a wingspan of 226 centimeters, which is basically just as tall as he is, and his feet are size 18. Those aren't shoes, those are frickin' water skis. Before coming to play for the NBA, he played for the Shanghai Sharks in the Chinese Basketball Association, and was then drafted to the NBA in 2002 to the Houston Rockets, where he there played until 2011. In February of 2017, Ming was elected as the chairman of the Chinese Basketball Association. Now, there is also a documentary titled The Year of Yao, filmed during his rookie year with the Rockets, as well as a book he co-wrote with NBA analyst Rick Butcher titled Yao, A Life in Two Worlds. So if you want to get to know him a little bit more, check those out. If you want to see how this giant dominated the court, I'm sure you can find tons of old Rocket games all over the internet. At number 7, staying in China but going back to the 1840s, we have Chang Yu-sing. Sing grew up to be 7 feet 9 inches tall, which is 236 centimeters, and was appointed as a member of the emperor's court. Later on in his life, he left China for England on what was only supposed to be a brief visit, but that brief visit ended up turning out to be a 2-year stay. During his stay in England, many people would stop him and pay 3 shillings just to see him. Later on, taking advantage of the extra cash, he went on tour through the rest of Europe and was shown off alongside another little person just like Anna Haining Bates. He later also joined P.T. Barnum's circus and was also known to have many female admirers. By the sounds of it though, none of them lasted because I could not find any info on whether he was actually ever married. Maybe he just liked the bachelor life too much. I get it. Anyway, Chang Yu-sing later passed away in 1893, and his funeral was only attended by 50 of his closest friends due to his own wishes. His coffin was 8 feet 5 inches long, that's 260 centimeters, and I don't want to imagine what it was like being one of those pallbearers. If I was one of them, I probably would have let him down. At number 6, we have Patrick Cotter O'Brien. Patrick was born in Kinsale, Ireland on January 19th, 1760. He grew up to be 8 feet 1 inch tall, which is 244 centimeters, and He was the first of 13 known people to grow past 244 centimeters. At the age of 18, he worked as a bricklayer. Needless to say, unlike the rest of his bricklaying colleagues, he did not need a ladder to reach the top of the cottages that they were working on. After he had enough of bricklaying, just like the most of the other giants on my list, he went into show business where he later went just by the name of O'Brien. He traveled around in a specially made carriage, and apparently he was once stopped by a highwayman who, when seeing the giant O'Brien inside, immediately ran away with his tail between his legs. His massive weight took quite the toll on his body, which brought him to his death on September 8, 1806 at the age of 46. I'm sure his weight caused him many troubles and struggles, but I bet it wasn't easy for the horses pulling him in the carriage either. That being said, the more horses, the easier it is to pull a 8-foot-tall giant. That's the old saying, right? Coming in at our halfway point at number 5, we have another Canadian, Joseph Edward Beaupre. Joseph was born in Willowbunch, Saskatchewan on January 9, 1881. His parents were what was considered average height, and honestly, so was he until the age of 3, and he started growing like crazy. By the age of 9, he outgrew his own parents, and he was 6.5 feet tall. At the age of 17, he was so big that it is reported that he lifted an 800-pound horse. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, then that means he was not only tall, this guy was yoked too. He reached his full giant potential at the age of 23 at 8 feet 3 inches. That's 251 centimeters. He had to wear giant custom-made shoes that were size 22. If Yao Ming's shoes are water skis, then these are freaking snowboards for each foot. He had dreams of becoming a cowboy, but gave up because his feet would still touch the ground while atop his bucking bronco. He later joined a circus as well as hoping to capitalize on his size, but it took its toll on him, especially because he suffered from tuberculosis. He sadly died on July 3rd at the age of 23. Now, this story gets pretty sad. After his death, the circus refused to help his father pay for the burial, so his body stayed with the undertakers, who then started displaying his corpse in store windows and museums. In 1907, his corpse was found in an old circus hangar and was then given to Montreal University, where it is mummified and stored. In 1970, Ovilla Lesperance, descendant of Joseph, requested her relative's body back, but was at first denied because the university didn't want his body stolen and put up for display again. Finally, Ovilla got her relative's body back, and Joseph was cremated in September of 1989, 85 years after his death. Even though his circus employers and maybe the Montreal University people are now deceased, I still have one thing to say to you. Screw you guys. At number 4, we have Arthur Cayley. Arthur Cayley was born in Sulby, Isle of Man in 1824 and was considered a normal-sized human being until his late teens when he started growing much taller. Maybe it was an after effect of puberty. He reached 7 feet 11 inches tall, which equals to 241 centimeters. He weighed over 392 pounds, which is 178 kilograms. His size earned him the name Manx Giant, and he was known to be a bit more wide than his other giant friends as well. He was frequently seen in exhibits in Manchester, London, and Paris before suddenly and mysteriously disappearing. His mother reported that he was dead, but many doubted this because his life had been insured for £2,000 only a few weeks prior. They believe it was a case of insurance fraud, and that a tree was actually buried in his place. Sure enough, Cayley was not actually dead. He traveled also to join P.T. Barnum's circus, and he was known as Colonel Ruth Goshen, the Arabian Giant. His former life as the Manx Giant stayed a well-kept secret until his death in 1889. At number 3, we have Angus MacAskill. Angus was born on the island of Bernay in Scotland back in 1825. The Guinness World Record books recognize him as the tallest true giant to have ever lived because his height was not caused by any kind of growth abnormality. Funnily enough, he was so small at birth that doctors didn't believe that he would survive. Now, Angus only grew to 7 feet 9 inches or 236 centimeters, which may not seem like much after a few of our friends on the list here, but trust me when I say this guy was still absolutely massive. He had the biggest chest ever, coming in at 203 centimeters or 80 inches around. He weighed in at 500 pounds. That's 227 kilograms in case you wanted to know. Oh, and by the way, he could lift a 2,800-pound ship's anchor. He was also known to carry a 100-pound weight, which is 45 kilograms, for 10 minutes using only 2 fingers. Angus often received requests from people wanting to wrestle him. If those challengers didn't have the same size as Angus, they most certainly had guts. He then, of course, later joined the circus and toured through Cuba and the East Indies until going to Europe and North America. After retiring from the circus, he went into real estate and opened up his own store. Sadly, in 1863, he died from brain fever. Can you imagine rolling up to a house and seeing this guy out front? The outside is perfect and beautiful, but I don't know a damn clue what it looks like on the inside. Can you let me know? At number 2, we have Bernard Coyne, aka Bernard the Giant. Original name, huh? Bernard was born in Anthon, Iowa on July 27th, 1897. His actual height is cause for dispute because some report him being 8 foot 2 inches, while others say he was 8 foot 4 inches, while even more people saying that he was 8 feet 8 inches. No matter what though, he was over 8 feet, which is over 200 240 centimeters tall. He was so tall that he was actually rejected by the army, probably because they could see him coming from miles away and that they were too scared that his rations would need to be 3 times the size of anyone else's. Unlike most other giant people whose height is a result of abnormalities in the pituitary gland, Bernard's height was from the unicoidal infantile gigantism, a very rare syndrome. His parents would put him on display for extra money when he was younger, but later decided against it because they didn't want to be on the receiving end of the wrath of God. Good idea, jerks. Bernard preferred a quiet life and turned down countless offers to go on exhibit ever again. His shoes were a size 24, which means they're considered something, I don't know, bigger than a snowboard, and he weighed in at 300 pounds, which is 136 kilograms. He sadly passed away at the age of 23. Man, being put on display for a couple of extra bucks by your parents. Too bad child services were not around yet. And finally, coming in at our #1 spot, if you ever visited Clifton Hill on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, you'll know this guy. Robert Wadlow. Robert was born on February 22nd, 1918 at a normal size. However, he quickly started growing at the age of 5 and he was already wearing clothes intended for teenagers. At age 8, he was taller than his 5'11" father and could even carry him up the stairs. He then joined the Boy Scouts at age 13 and had to have his own uniform, tent, and sleeping bag specially made for him. In 1936, he joined the Ringling Brothers Circus as a curiosity. He had a huge appetite and ate around 8,000 calories a day. In case you're wondering, the average human eats 2,000 to 2,400 calories a day. Damn, that guy can eat. He unfortunately suffered from some leg issues and had to wear leg braces and also often use a cane, but nevertheless, he kept growing. Sadly, one day, one leg brace was fitted improperly and ended up causing him a huge blister on his ankle, which then became infected. Tragically, the infection killed him at the age of 22 on July 15th, 1940. He was last measured June 27th, 1940 at 8 feet 11 inches, which is 272 centimeters. He was a true giant, and not only was he actually missed, but so is his Niagara Falls statue at the Guinness Book of Records Museum. I remember countless trips where I actually measured myself up against him, and that was a lot of fun. Miss you, Robbie.
Starting us off this countdown, we have Harold Dahl. This is supposedly the real-life story that inspired the movie Men in Black. So on June 27th, 1947, Harold Dahl, his young son, and his dog went out on a conservation mission. While out on the fishing boat, they saw 6 donut-shaped aircrafts hovering in the air above them. The crafts then started dropping weird molten-type waste onto the lake. He described it as if it was raining lava or white metal. This ended up hitting his son's arm and the dog. The son was badly injured and sadly the dog didn't survive. When this happened, Harold managed to take a picture of the aircraft. The following morning, he was visited by a man in a black suit at a local diner. The man apparently threatened Harold to delete the photo, and he was told to not talk about the incident. But this story has been retold so many times that the facts are now jumbled. Some say that it was his son that got his arm burnt on the alien lava, but in another story, it was his co-workers, so I don't even know what to think.
Coming at number 9, we have the cornfield. It should be no surprise that we are doing a list about Men in Black, and we got a point about a cornfield. Aliens love cornfields for whatever reason. Maybe they land in a cornfield, they scoop up a bunch of corn, then they make popcorn, and that they can eat while they watch humans freak out because they landed in a cornfield. That seems like the perfect circle of entertainment. But this point was thrown on top of Reddit by Redditor Muffins for Petey. They said that they grew up on a farm, and one night they saw something fly down from the sky and hover right above their farm. It was shaped like a rectangle and looked like it was glowing light, like a massive glowing log in the sky. Well, then this thing just vanished. Almost as fast as it came, it was gone. They must have only needed a little bit of popcorn. The next day, there was a knock at the door. It was 2 men in black suits, and they had dark glasses on. They said that they needed to inspect the farm because there was a supposed gas leak. It was very strange because mostly everything on the farm was run by solar energy. These 2 men had government identification, but gave them very little information as to what they were going to do. They just told them that they needed to stay in their home or they were going to be arrested for endangering people. So they listened, and then these 2 dudes poked around for a little bit, and then they were off. They never said if they found anything or fixed a gas leak. The whole thing was just very suspicious. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out.
In our 8th spot, we have Shane Sover. This next encounter happened fairly recently. So on October 14th, 2008, hotel manager Shane Sover had been informed by a security guard at his hotel that he had seen a UFO from the hotel. 2 weeks later,
Meet Milo. He's part border collie, part terrier,
panicked when two strange men entered the hotel in search of Shane and the security guard. Shane, wanting to see who these men were, checked the security footage. And sure enough, two men in black suits wearing a hat could be seen wandering the hotel. The men didn't have any hair and looked fairly strange. Yeah, I'm thinking they were like aliens disguised as humans.
Coming in number 7, we have the footage. If you ever get some hardcore evidence that aliens are real, you better put that stuff on a hard drive and beeline it to the border, because there is no way that you're going to upload that stuff without having Men in Black come down on you. I grabbed this story off an Alien Encounter subreddit, and the person writing it said they for real saw a UFO fly above them and then zoom off like a laser, and they managed to get it on video. The first thing they went to do was upload it to the internet, but all of the sudden, they had no signal. This was in the middle of the night, and they were all alone. And then out of nowhere, two Men in Black were standing right behind him. They had their faces covered and guns pointed at him. They demanded the phone, and as soon as he gave it to them, he passed out. He woke up in the drunk tank and was apparently being belligerent, but he hadn't drank anything that night, and his phone was still missing.
And at number 6, we have the spaceman photo. In 1964, Jim Templeton spent the day taking photos of his wife and daughter in a field. But when he got the photos developed, he saw something quite strange in the background of his daughter's photo. It appeared to be a spaceman right by her daughter. The only other people that had been there that day were some older ladies. Of course, people didn't believe the photo to be real, but an analyst at Kodak confirmed that the photo was real and hadn't been tampered with. Even creepier, after Jim's story made big news, he was visited by 2 government agents, 2 men in suits that referred to themselves as number 9 and 10. They then demanded to see where the photo was taken, and he was heavily questioned about that day. When Jim told them he never saw the figure in person, the men became angry and drove away. It's pretty sus.
Coming in at number 5, we have Albert K. Bender. It turns out dedicating your life to flying saucers is nothing new. Albert K. Bender was the founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau. This place was leading the field in investigative work when it came to finding out what the government knew about aliens. In 1955, he wrote a paper that was detailing everything the government was doing with aliens, and it was ready to be published in the Space Review. But that would change when he was visited by some Men in Black. They teleported into his room late one night and had the psychic ability to talk to him through their minds. They manipulated him to destroy his research, and that was that. He would never go on to touch anything to do with aliens after this point.
Moving on to number 4, we have Jack and Mary Robinson. Back in 1968, Jack and his wife Mary were both UFO researchers. Didn't even know that was a job, but where can I apply? But the more they researched into aliens and UFOs, the more weird stuff began to happen. One time they returned home to find that their house had been searched. All their files regarding UFOs and aliens had been tampered with. Then things started to get worse. Mary started noticing a man that would stand outside their apartment and watch them. The man was always wearing a black suit and a hat. In fact, they managed to capture a photo of him. Mary had told her friend what was happening, and the friend drove over and saw the man for herself and took a photo of him. It's so freaky.
Coming in number 3, we have the Night Visitors. I'm on the fence when it comes to meeting aliens. Like, of course I would want to meet aliens, but it would have to be the right setting. Like in a park or at a party or a big reveal event like they do with the latest iPhone. Steve Cook is like, now I give you the alien. But the way this next story goes wouldn't be my ideal circumstance. Reddit user Chop Stew told a story of an alien encounter that brought a man in black into his life. It all happened super fast. He woke up in the middle of the night and there were 5 tall gray beings standing around his bed. He was in a haze, then he started to panic, but before he could even speak, he was back asleep. He woke up the next morning feeling a little bit rattled. Whatever he saw last night seemed so real, but it couldn't have been. It must have been a strange dream. The next day at work, he was called into HR, but there was a new person working. This lady had just come in for the day from head office. She wanted to just talk about his personal life. They chatted for a bit, and then she asked him about his dreams. He could feel the hair on the back of his neck stand up when she posed the question. He didn't give in and kept the alien sighting to himself. The next day, the regular HR person was back, and he never found out who this replacement was and why they wanted to speak to him and how they knew about what had just happened to him the night before. So this time, it was a lady in black.
In our second spot, we have Dr. Herbert Hopkins. Back in the day, a man named Dr. Hopkins was working as a consultant on a UFO case in Maine. A Again, I didn't know that was a job. That was until one day he received a phone call from someone claiming to be part of the UFO community. Again, didn't know that was a thing. He asked if he could visit Dr. Hopkins to discuss the case. Hopkins agreed, and he was greeted by an intimidating man wearing a black suit and black tie. Apparently, this guy was extremely pale.
In what could be the most challenging moments of a person's life, you do more than take blood or give a diagnosis. You're their lifeline to hope, the person who can return them to health.
With no hair or eyebrows. As soon as the man entered Hopkins' home, his dog went berserk, just started barking at him. The man then basically interrogated Hopkins to see how much he knew. Before leaving though, he told Hopkins that there were 2 coins in his pocket, Hopkins' pocket. He then told him to reach into one of his pockets and retrieve it. He did it, and then he said to hold the coin in his hand and look at it closely. Within a few seconds, the coin started to go in and out of focus before disappearing completely from his hand. He then said that the coin would never be seen on this plane again. It gets weirder. The man then asked him if he was familiar with a man named Barney Hill. Barney Hill was a man that said he was abducted by a UFO. He died from cerebral hemorrhage. When Hopkins said yes, he knew of him, the man said, "Barney didn't have a heart, just like you no longer have a coin." Basically implying that he's got the power to kill him. And honestly, he probably killed Barney. Hopkins was then told to get rid of every file he had on the UFO case. And he did as he was told. He burned every shred of evidence. Watch, now the Men in Black are gonna come after me and Che for this video. Just saying.
Again, coming to the #1 spot, we have a message from the future. Now, who knows if this is true? It's fun to believe stories like the one I'm about to tell you because it makes life a little bit more interesting. But a story I snagged online spoke of someone who started to receive messages on their phone. They were from an unknown number, but they had details about things that seemed to be random. The messages would be like, a man in a plaid shirt will buy a coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars next to you and forget his wallet. Like, okay, but what does that mean? But then these events started happening. It was like these texts were coming from the future. So he started to respond to them, but the person would never communicate outside of these messages that were hints from the future. But why was this coming to our random writer? Well, we never found out because one day a black van pulled up next to him and 4 men in black suits jumped out and told him that he was under arrest. They put him in the van and then took him to a police station. They searched him, took his phone, he was detained for a few hours and then released and was given everything except for his phone. They said it got lost and they would send it to him when they found it, but he never got his phone back, and from there, the messages just stopped.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have a Mexico circus demon. This demon story takes place in Mexico in 1942 and is a son recounting his father's story from when he was 20 years old. The father and his younger brother went to check out the circus that had just arrived in town. They were most excited to see the freak shows, but after checking them out for a while, there wasn't really anything that was piquing their interest. They met a couple girls and they were about to go check out some music when a man wearing a dinner jacket came up and started talking to them. He said he was the greatest illusionist in the world and that he could show them a trick both scary and amazing. He also said that he wasn't actually part of the circus and that he had auditioned, but they said his act was so frightening they couldn't allow him in the circus. The father and his brother were both very intrigued now and asked to see the trick, and the man said he could only show them if they came to his trailer, which wasn't too far away. In 2021, we know that you never go to a stranger's trailer, but they all followed the man in this story. Once at the trailer, the man begins his trick. He holds up his right hand and then puts a white glove on it. He then waves his left hand around his right, wiggling his right fingers and chanting some words that the guys didn't understand. He then asks if they're ready. The guys reply yes, and the man pulls the white glove off of his hand, revealing his hand as only a skeleton. The man even went as far as to grab the father's head with his skeleton hand to prove it was real. The boys, of course, got out of there as quickly as possible. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Demon on the Veranda story. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. This story takes place in a small village in India when the storyteller was 16 years old and living in a boarding school. All the girls slept in a big hall, and one night, one of the other girls, named Malty, woke her up around 1 a.m. as Malty wasn't feeling too well. She goes to get some water and went outside on the veranda with Malty to try and help her feel better as she was feeling very nauseous. She looked to the right and saw the far end of the veranda, and there was only one light, and the rest of the light was all coming from the moon. After a while of comforting Malty, she looked up to the right again and saw a kind of cat-like figure, but after
I see you looking at me. Ooh, you're zipped.
No, don't do it.
You can't ignore.
After a closer look, this cat had the head of a human and was bald with big eyes. She tried to convince herself that her eyes were deceiving her, but it began getting closer and she could see it more clearly. She was frozen with fear, and by the time this creature was around 10 meters away from her, it let out a meow sound that absolutely terrified her. She screamed, grabbed Malty, and got both of them back into the hall where everyone was still sleeping. This of course woke everyone up though, and the warden came over to see what all the commotion was about. She asked the warden not to make any loud sounds and begged her not to open the door. Everyone in the hallway looked outside and saw this shadowy creature moving before it just disappeared. To this day, she still isn't exactly sure what she saw, but she's glad she has never encountered it again. In our number 8 spot today, we have this sleep paralysis demon. This story comes from the Reddit user JStation666, and this is what they had to say about their demon encounter. I was laying in bed and fell asleep, and I woke up not being able to move or scream. I tried my best and it went on for about 5 minutes. It stopped, but after that I felt hands around my throat trying to choke me. I look up and all I see is a very tall black outline of a figure with flaming hair, and I could feel its long finger-like claws around my neck. The next morning I get up and there's red marks around my neck of what looks like very large hands. Sadly, I didn't take a picture when I should have, but after, it's hard for me to get to sleep in a dark room. I feel like I would have thought this was just a scary case of sleep paralysis, but the waking up with hand marks around their throat truly is very scary and kind of unexplainable. I am glad that they made it through this frightening situation. In our number 7 spot today, we have this eye-changing demon. This story comes from the Reddit user Katzabar from a time when they were around 11 or 12 years old. He starts off with explaining that they moved apartments a lot growing up, and no matter where they went, entities would always find him, and he also tells us that he had bright blue eyes, like his mother's, which will be important later. They moved into a new apartment and things immediately began to go poorly. He had a dream where he was in a bright white room and there was a beast on the ceiling that looked into his eyes and roared. The roar obviously frightened him and he woke up screaming, which of course woke up his mother, who rushed to his side. His mother was also very frightened, not only because she woke up to the sound of her son screaming, but because his scream did not sound like a little boy's, but was like the scream of a grown man. If this whole situation wasn't already strange enough, after this dream, his eyes turned from that bright blue color to a hazel color and have never changed back to blue. If that really is true, I have no idea how that happened, and that is honestly pretty crazy. In our number 6 spot today, we have this gray skin demon. This story comes from Pink Magic 724 on Reddit and is about a night they had a few years ago while still in college. Pink Magic's best friend of many years was in town, so they went out for a dinner to catch up and spend some time together. They, of course, end up getting a bit caught up, as best friends do, and before they know it, it is around 2 a.m. and definitely time for them to head home. Pink Magic's friend was the one who drove, so they headed off to Pink Magic's house. They're at an intersection waiting for the light to turn green when Pink Magic turns their head and looks out the window into the car next to them. This is when she sees the person next to them is looking directly at them, but they have gray skin, completely black eyes with no white, and they are smiling, but their teeth are long and sharp. Whoever or whatever this thing is, it will not break eye contact. Pink Magic tries to scream, but no sound will come out, and eventually the friend sees the creature too and immediately speeds out of there. To this day, neither of them like to talk about it, and neither of them are quite sure what exactly they witnessed. In our number 5 spot today, we have this demon in your mind. This story comes from Sylvie on Reddit and starts off a few years ago after an argument with a friend. This friend was really upset, so Sylvie went to bed, definitely not feeling great about what had just happened and Sylvie's behavior that led to this argument. About halfway through the night, Sylvie thinks that they had a dream, but they can't for sure say because they remember it so clearly. Sylvie woke up and had a knife in their hand, and the room was illuminated by the moonlight. As they looked around the room, they saw on the wall some words that looked like they were written in blood. Sylvie looked around the room again when something caught her eye. There was some sort of creature in the dark corner of the room that looked like one of those deep sea fish with the scary eyes and the really sharp teeth. I think they're called anglerfish. As soon as Sylvie saw this creature, the moonlight in
Our favorite product from the laundress has to be the wool and cashmere shampoo. We love how delicate it is and how soft it dries. We have a lot of laundry in our home. You definitely want it to be a nice part of your day and a nice process. This is laundry our way.
This was my Jeep when I got it, and here's how I gave it a major vibe shift with eBay Motors.
The room changed to a flashing orange light, and this is when Sylvie definitely woke up in a cold sweat. Sylvie chalked it up to just a really scary dream and went and got ready for school and went about their day, but they just could not shake this feeling. After the first period was over, Sylvie was feeling really anxious, and they reached up to the cross necklace they were wearing when a voice spoke in their head. The voice said, "God won't save you." Sylvie said that they had a few more incidents with this demon, but after firmly telling it to leave and using their religion and faith as a guide and a protection, they have luckily been demon-free ever since. In our number 4 spot today, we have the demon in the basement. This story comes from the Reddit user DreamGuy72 and starts off in his first apartment in the summer of 1992 in Casper, Wyoming on none other than Elm Street. The apartment was a basement suite where Dreamguy and his boyfriend lived, and their friends occupied the main floor suite above them. One day, Dreamguy was home alone and was repainting the main bedroom when he decided to take a break. After he had a drink, he headed back into the main bedroom, but this is when all of his hairs stood up. He saw that there was something painted on the opposite wall from the one that he had been painting. His heart was absolutely pounding as he walked up to the writing, and this is where he saw that the paint was still wet and dripping down the wall. The paintbrush he had been using was exactly where he left it, and there wasn't any paint on the floor. The words just said, "I am here." He of course got out of there as quickly as possible, and when he told his boyfriend later, he just kind of dismissed it. A few months go by, and Dreamguy and his boyfriend get home after a long day of both of them being out of the house all day. Dreamguy heads to the shower to get ready for bed, and as he's in the shower, he hears the bathroom door open and close. He of course just assumes it's his boyfriend, and he's rinsing the conditioner out of his hair when he asks his boyfriend if he is joining him in the shower, and that's when he hears the response, "Sounds good to me," but it is not his boyfriend's voice. He then feels ice-cold hands grab his shoulders and spin him around as he opens his eyes to see that no one else is there. He of course bolts it out of the bathroom, and he's now in the front room trying to catch his breath when he sees his boyfriend shaking, pointing to the bathroom, saying he saw it go in there. It's safe to say that Dreamguy didn't live there for much longer, and I am very glad he made it out of this apartment and lived to tell the tale. In our number 3 spot today, we have this Lady Ghost demon story. This story comes from the Reddit user 7-Leg Spider, and they really just dive in. Basically, for several years, Spider saw what they thought was just a lady ghost every night at the door of the closet. It happened for so long that Spider just got used to it and even started saying goodnight to her. Spider says she didn't look bad or rotten, she was just a lady with pale skin and dark hair. Anyway, after a few years of this, Spider finally tells a friend at school about the lady. This friend, of course, didn't believe the story right away, but the next day at school, he tells Spider that this lady tried to hurt him while he was sleeping. Now, Spider didn't believe the friend and thought he was just playing a prank. Some more time goes by and Spider decides to tell another friend about the lady, and the same thing happens where the next day she comes and tells Spider that the lady had tried to hurt her while she was sleeping. The first friend and the second friend didn't even know each other, so it's not like they could have been conspiring, which made Spider believe his first friend was telling the truth. Then, a while after that, Spider is on a video chat with a friend and they're talking about the paranormal when they both see something run across the screen. They chalk it up to just being a computer glitch, and Spider starts telling his friend about the lady. and then Spider begins to get extremely dizzy, like they're going to pass out. After it goes away, Spider tells their friend that they're okay, and the friend replies that they were out of it for at least a full minute, and that he could feel that someone was there trying to hurt Spider. I'm really glad that Spider and all the friends ended up being okay, and I really hope that they found a way to get rid of this lady demon. In our number 2 spot today, we have Zozo. This story comes from Reddit user Archaic Alchemy, who we'll call A. When A was 22, they were staying with their sister, and one night they had a couple of good friends over to hang out, and they decided to play around with a Ouija board, which is always the start of a good demon story. A had read about people encountering an entity called Zozo, and A really wanted some proof that things exist beyond our physical realm, so they wanted to use the Ouija board. Everyone places their hands on the planchette, and A calls out to Zozo. It took a few attempts before anything happened, but then the planchette began to move in figure eights. No matter what was asked, it just kept moving in figure eights until it finally spelled out M-A-M-A. That's us, we're MA. Maybe they were talking about our channel. A kept asking who they were talking to, and eventually they spelled out Zozo, and then things really escalated. The planchette was taken to the letters to spell out kill you, and when
my name is Spencer Russell, and because of TikTok, I'm reaching millions of families who want to teach their toddlers how to read. When a kid learns how to read, doors open. They can access the world around them in a way that only readers can.
When A asked who, Zozo spelled out one of the friends' names. They didn't take it seriously and kept asking more questions, and one friend made the mistake of insulting Zozo. The planchette begins frantically moving through the alphabet backwards over and over before it just stops. Then the energy in the room completely drops, and A knows that this means Zozo has manifested itself. Suddenly, A begins to laugh maniacally with no control over it. A could feel Zozo's presence inside and could feel Zozo turning all of this hatred and anger towards the friend that had been named before. A's emotions suddenly completely switch and they begin crying uncontrollably before again suddenly snapping back to anger. A's head turns involuntarily to look at the friend with a menacing grin as A pushes the planchette towards the friend. The friend decides it's rightfully time to leave, and shortly after they left, A felt like they regained control and Zozo's presence had disappeared. I'm so glad that nothing even crazier happened and that Zozo wasn't able to harm this friend. In our number 1 spot today, we have Velgrod. This story comes from the Reddit user Wheezy Donkey. Since he was a child, he's had interactions with a demon he knows as Velgrod. He first noticed the demon during the night as he was trying to fall asleep. It would continue saying his name quietly over and over again. This happened about once a month on a random night as he was trying to fall asleep, and he tried to ignore it, but every time it happened, the voice was a little louder because it was getting closer. One Friday night, he heard the voice and realized it was right at the end of his bed. He was frozen in fear, and every other night, if he waited long enough, the demon would just leave, but this time, it wasn't happening. He found a lot of courage and lifted the blanket to inspect what he hoped was just his overactive imagination, but what he saw was too real for him to believe it was just imagination. This creature was tall and lanky with the yellow eyes of a reptile. His eyes were also bulging and very far apart. The creature apparently appeared as though he had been burned all over his body as he had charred and blistered skin. When the creature opened its mouth, it revealed its long, lizard-like tongue that descended to its chest. In his right hand, he had a cane he was using to keep himself from falling over, but the cane was covered in barbed wire. In his other hand, Velgrod was holding the Bible that was on the nightstand. When he held the Bible up into the air, it was immediately engulfed in flames that left nothing but ash. Velgrod kept eye contact the entire time as he used his foot to spread the ashes across the floor in a certain pattern, at the same time hissing menacingly. Velgrod then turned and began to walk away towards the door and down the stairs. Wheezy Donkey sat frozen with fear for a while before working up the courage to inspect the ash on the floor. When he finally did, he saw that the ash spelled out, "Hell is below you." Ooh, that was creepy.
Starting us off with number 10 is The Hand. This one's from Stephen Wagner, who said his dad told him the story. So back in 1942 in Juarez, Mexico, his dad was around 20 years old and he went to a circus that was visiting town. His younger brother came along and they didn't really go to see the acts, they were more interested in the freak shows. Disappointed after seeing the performers, they were about to leave with two girls when they ran into a short, stubby man. The stranger introduced himself as the greatest illusionist in the world. That's quite a hefty title. When asked if he was part of the circus, the man said the owner turned him down because his act was so frightening. The owner said he was Satan himself. Once he had their attention, he invited them back to his trailer in order to show them the act. Once inside, the stranger put a glove on his right hand, started running his left hand over his right while wiggling his fingers. He then started chanting bizarre words, and when he took the glove off, everyone's jaws just dropped. The stranger's hand was completely skeletal. He turned it, let them see the back, it was completely real. His brother went to take a closer look, and the man grabbed his head and said he was really about to show them something now, and at this point, everybody shat themselves and made a run for it. The stranger came out onto his porch laughing, and on the floor nearby was a bed of long nails pointing up, which he jumped onto. Weird flex, but okay. Blood started coming out of his feet, but he was still just laughing it off. And from that day onwards, Stephen's father and brother knew they had met Satan. Coming in at number 9 is Father Urban Grandi. Now, Father Urban was a Roman Catholic priest that lived in the Lodin part of France. He was under major scrutiny and received a lot of criticism for ignoring his celibacy vow. If anything, he was known for having sexual relations with many women and as someone who had an elevated sense of lustful depravity. By 1632, he was accused of sending the demon Asmodai to enchant a group of Ursuline nuns into committing evil acts and becoming his sex slaves. You know, as priests do. After numerous nuns made accusations of seduction against him, he was arrested, then acquitted, and then re-arrested. During his second arrest, he was tortured by judges, after which they revealed a contract they found in his bedroom, which indicated he had signed a deal with Satan and many other demons. They saw it as evidence of him making a diabolical pact and convicted him of witchcraft and sentenced him to death. He was burnt at the stake. At number 8, we have A Better Life. This one's from Redditor Kodas_gaming, who said he had a really rough upbringing. His father abandoned his family, and his mother was a heroin addict. He used to see her getting beat to a pulp, after which she'd take her frustrations out on him. CPS ended up taking him and his brother away, but a few years later, his mum was clean and back with their dad, and they regained custody. Sort of happy ending, kind of, but not really. They lived in a small house in Central Texas, and according to the user, the house had a terrifying aura. Anytime he was home, he felt like he was being watched, especially in the bathroom, and he would have regular nightmares. And at this point in his life, his mum was working herself to death because their dad was a lazy slob who did nothing. She got so depressed she tried to take her own life, and desperate to help, the user started praying to God every single day. But nothing changed. He realized for something to change, perhaps he could call on the demonic entity that engulfed his house rather than God. He researched satanic rituals for ages and finally found the one he needed. While his family were out for ice cream one day, he got on his knees, wax coming down the candles he'd lit, and cut his hand and started drawing symbols on the ground in his blood. Obviously while crying the whole time, because who wouldn't cry after doing that? He recited the words and made the deal. And right after he did that, a cold breeze swept through the house and everything went black. But he was pretty much unfazed because he expected something like that to happen, so he went to bed that night and had the worst nightmare ever. He saw himself in the reflection of the mirror in the bathroom with corpse grey skin, bloody tears, and his eyes were crimson as well. There was a noose around his neck and his hair was bloody. During the dream, he thought, this can't be me, and then the reflection started laughing, saying, it is now, you made the deal. He woke up in the bathtub covered in scratches and scars, and it just kept happening and getting worse. 1 month later, he started seeing things, hearing things, his nail beds began to recede and bleed, his canines became sharper, and his tongue used to get cut out of nowhere, and he started full-on hallucinating and having visions of the past, of native people being slaughtered. And how did that even happen? I don't even know. And what did he get out of all of this? Other than his mum getting a higher paying job, not much at all. So, moral of the story, know what you're getting into before you ask the devil for help. Filling our number 7 slot is Joseph Smith. Now, Joseph was a Mormon prophet in the early 1800s who claimed he encountered Satan before he saw Christ for the first time. We have both big shots in one story, how about that? The story goes that despite never doing this before, one day he just decided he was going to pray to God out loud. He went into the woods on a sunny day and knelt down and began to pray. I don't know why he went into the woods, he could have just done it in his house, but okay. But as soon as he did, he said he felt he was seized by a power that engulfed him entirely. He said it was so powerful he tried to speak but felt like his tongue was bound. A thick darkness surrounded him and he thought for sure he was going to die. And I mean, fair enough for being realistic. If I felt that, I'd probably think I was going to die too. He was ready to sink into this despair that was around him, but in one final hope, he used all his strength to call on God to get him out of Satan's hold. Then, all of a sudden, he saw a huge pillar of light over his head, which came down on him. As the light rested on him, he saw 2 personages in the air above him, and everything was fine again. At least this one had a happy ending, sort of. Now, at number 6 is Madame Lalaurie. Delphine Lalaurie has been mentioned many times on this channel, but just a quick recap for you. She was a big Creole socialite in New Orleans. To the public, that is. Inside her house, she tortured and killed the majority of her slaves in a way you can't even imagine. In 1834, a house fire took over her mansion, and that's when she got exposed because authorities found bodies upon bodies of bound or mutilated slaves. One stomach had been cut open and his intestines were wrapped around his neck. A bucket was also found with various organs from various slaves. A bucket. That's how much mass killing the woman was doing that she needed a bucket for all the organs she was harvesting. Anyway, with some stroke of luck, she managed to escape New Orleans and go to France, but many believe she didn't just escape due to luck. She invented a religion involving voodoo and black magic, and on top of that, people vehemently believe she made a pact with the devil in order to be able to still be wealthy, still be free, and escape whilst committing these horrendous acts. I mean, for me, it was either the devil pact or she paid a lot of important money to let her go. What do you guys think? Coming in at number 5 is the Satanic Cult. This one's from Brad, who said back in 2005, him and his friends spent one summer TPing a lot of houses. In the town they grew up, there were always rumors of a satanic cult that operated around a 10-minute drive away. So one day, they decided to go check it out and TP it. Ballsy move, I have to say. The 5 friends went there the day before moon, which I guess is a part of every scary story you hear nowadays, and they bypassed the fence and ended up in a garden enclosure and heard an eerie high-pitched sound.
Welcome to Ink Master. I think this is number 1. This tattoo's sick.
It's bold. It's beautiful. You smash this out of the park.
Victory is a work of art.
Ink Master, new season, now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
Ignoring it, they continued to explore, found an old locked church, and found nothing else and decided to leave. Bit anticlimactic, but just stay with me. When they got to their car, their key, which was working perfectly 10 minutes prior, just stopped working. The car alarm started going off and then it magically just unlocked by itself. They piled in and drove off, and mid-drive the lights in the car just went off. The driver didn't press anything to cause it, it just happened. Panicked, they rushed home, and when Brad got to his front porch, he found 3 identical black cats. Keep in mind, he lives a good 25 miles away from the cult, so how do these cats even get to his house? He took the cats as a bad omen and decided to take the cats a few miles out of town and leave them there. And the whole drive, he was being followed by 2 black cars despite taking small dirt roads. Now, I don't know if people were just messing with him here or the satanic cult was there and they saw him and everything was their doing, but either way, it's scary and it's creepy. At number 4 is Giuseppe Tartini. Now, from the name, doesn't he just sound like a brilliant Italian musician of some kind? His name just has the ring to it, you know? Anyway, Tartini was an Italian composer and violinist during the Baroque period. He was very influential in Italy, but he was also known for his huge inferiority complex and uncontrollable temper. And I can just see that equaling to a lot of smashed violins. But anyway, the story goes that one day Tartini heard Francesco Verrocchini Tartini playing the violin better than him, and he was fuming and also dissatisfied with his own skills. The event made him spiral into depression for months, and in that time he worked in solitude and practiced the violin for 12 hours a day. During this period, it's said he had a dream in which the devil appeared and he met him. He appeared at the foot of his bed and played a sonata on the violin like he invented the damn activity. He offered him success in all his musical dreams in exchange for his soul. Did he accept? Well, it was never really confirmed, but when he woke up the next day, he wrote down as much of the sonata as he could, but no matter how many times he played it, it just wasn't as good as the Devil's version. If you want to check it out, the sonata in question is called the Devil's Trill Sonata, his most well-known piece, and it's quite hard to play even by today's standards. But the fact he could never play it as well as the Devil, I mean, doesn't that just indicate he wasn't successful in everything he wanted to be? So, am I the only one identifying this major plot hole we have going on? Did he accept? Did he not? Let me know, Tartini. Filling our number 3 slot is Gemma Galgani. Gemma was an Italian mystic, later saint, in Italy during the late 19th century. She believed that the devil was waging a personal war against her. She said he loved giving her horrible headaches to the point she couldn't even pray. I mean, honestly, I just feel like that was a bad migraine, but moving on. She went on to say that once she was writing at her desk alone and the devil came and dragged her from the table by her hair with such force that her hair came out in clumps. In another attack, the devil took the form of a big black dog and put his paws on her shoulders, making her whole body ache all over. And in another one, she was drinking holy water and he twisted her arms so backwards that she fell to the ground in pain. If that's not bad enough, she said he even took on the form of people she trusted or knew, and once he even took the form of an angel. The worst incident though was when he started giving her blows to the head. She ran to her room but found him there with a rope. He kept trying to get her to give in to the wickedness and she kept resisting, and so he kept striking her with the rope as she was on the ground. He then threw her on the bed, then dragged her from it and violently smashed her head against the ground, and she passed out. Just imagine all this happening in your room and no one's there to help you. I'd be terrified. But I'm also curious as to what form the devil took when he attacked her all those times, and if anybody was around, were they seeing this happen? Was she being attacked by an invisible force? Like, what was happening here? Now at number 2 is Steve. This one's from Redditor Shabby Boa, whose real name is Steve and who used to be a trucker for 30 years. One night after a drop-off, he was on his way back home when he stopped at a diner to pee. It was completely empty, no customers, no staff, absolutely no one. He quickly peed, and when he came out, a grey-haired man was sitting at the bar. He told Steve he owned the diner and gave him food and a drink. When he got up to leave, the man said food is not what you truly desired tonight. Weirded out, Steve left and got into his truck. About an hour and a half later, he had to pee again. Steve, you've got a small bladder, mate, and saw another
I think you're a moth, drawn to shiny things, desperate to get in.
Saltburn, rated R, now playing only in theaters.
Small diner which he stopped at. He went inside and again it was completely empty save a grey-haired man at the bar. It was the same man who said nice to have you back, Steve, as soon as he walked in. Steve got pissed at this point, thinking he was being screwed over by this guy, and demanded to know what the guy wanted. He said he was trying to help Steve. He started asking about Steve and how he used to have a family. Steve told him his wife and daughter died in a house fire years ago caused by faulty wiring. But the man questioned him, saying it wasn't just faulty wiring. The faulty wiring was a happy coincidence that just so happened to have happened the same time Steve left a lit cigarette in the house. Steve fought with him more, and in the end the man offered him a deal. He said he could bring back his wife and daughter in exchange for his soul after he died. Thinking it was complete bullshit, he agreed and left the diner. Before he did, he asked the man who he was, to which he responded, "I am the devil." That night he got home as if he never stopped anywhere at all, and when he entered the house, he heard his wife say, "Steve, is that you?" and the small footsteps of his daughter. He was so excited, but when they came down the stairs, their skin was charred black. Chunks of it were falling off, their clothes had fused and melted with their skin, and Steve could barely hold in his puke. And at that point he'd realized he'd made the biggest mistake ever, and that the next 30 years were literally gonna be hell. And finally, at number 1 is The Man. This one's from VR Greg, who said she met the devil for the first time when she was 8 years old. She was walking through a forest on her way home from school when she encountered a black-haired man in a shabby suit. Except, One foot of his was a goat hoof and the other was a rooster claw. She could see them when she looked at him directly, but peripherally they looked completely normal. She took him for a walk and then he left. By the time she was a teenager, she assumed the counter was maybe a dream, or maybe that she just imagined the whole thing. But one day she was watching a news story about a man who got away with killing his wife, and as they showed the judge announcing the not guilty verdict, the murderer turned around and smiled at a man behind him who wasn't his lawyer. She recognized him right away. Black hair, shabby suit, hadn't aged a day. Her parents threw her a surprise 16th birthday to which nobody came to, which is just really sad. I'm sorry that happened to you. She ran home crying and she knew no one came because her classmate Erin had her party the same day just to spite her. That night she slept thinking about all the horrible ways Erin deserved to be punished, and the next day at the breakfast table her dad looked shaken. He told her that Erin had been found dead in the park. She met the devil the same day in her room and he told her she had wanted it to happen and he executed it for her. He offered her a deal, but thankfully the one piece of common sense that 90% of people possess is knowing that you should never make a deal with the devil, so she didn't. The girl didn't see him again until the funeral of her mother, where he told her the doctors lied to her about her mother dying peacefully, that it was agony and that no one was around to help her. She started immediately screaming and her dad ran over to her and made her sit down. When she asked him where the black-haired man was, he said, "You were standing alone, honey," and just started screaming out of nowhere. Shivers. That gave me shivers.
Number 10, Richard Cabell. This man lived in Devon, England during the 1600s and was apparently a huge dirtbag. He would torment people in his town and even abuse his wife. One night, in a violent rage, he struck his wife and she tried to escape. He then hunted her down and killed her and her dog. We all know what happens next. People believe that he felt he had the freedom to treat everyone horribly because he made a deal with the devil for immortality. But he did eventually die on July 5th, 1677. After he died, there were reports of a ghostly figure walking around the gravesite. This freaked out the locals so much, so they put a giant slab of stone on top of his grave, as well as encased the tomb with metal bars. And it was said that night you could see a ghostly figure that kind of looked like a beast with glowing red eyes. Some people thought that it was Satan looking for the soul that belonged to him. Number 9, the carpenter. The devil's weaved into history in so many different places. This ancient tale comes from a village called Tyrol in Austria. The legend has it that the locals had a well-traveled bridge that they used to cross from their village to a village called Schruns. One day, the bridge was destroyed in a massive flood. The villagers were very distressed, so they got help from a local carpenter. They told him that if he could rebuild the bridge in 3 days, they would pay him a huge amount of money. He knew such a task would be impossible, so he asked the villagers if he could have a day to think about it in order to come up with a solution. That night, when he was trying to find a way to build the bridge in such a short period of time, he was visited by a man with a little green hat. I love how these stories just have some creepy dude that shows up to your house in the middle of the night, and you're like, I wonder what he wants. Couldn't be anything bad. Well, the little man told the carpenter that he would build the bridge for him, and he could keep all the money. The only thing he wanted in return was the soul from the first person to leave this house and cross the bridge. The carpenter knew this was the devil, so he had a plan. The next day, the bridge was built, and the carpenter showed up. The devil saw him there and was jumping in excitement to get his prize. Then, the carpenter pushed a goat onto the bridge and said, "Here's your soul." You got played, dude. Legend says the devil took the goat and people started roasting him as he was walking around with the goat. People were like, "Hey, you should have read the fine print. Oh, you two look like a great couple." I just love the idea of people roasting the devil. Like, oh, Prince of Darkness can't trick a tradesman. Number 8, George Lukens. Back in the day, if you got sick, you kind of had 2 options. You either got sicker and died, or you could go to a church and get an exorcism. On May 31st, 1788, George Lukens wasn't feeling too hot. He had started having convulsions, and it was reported that he would yell out in a voice that didn't sound human. So he went to the doctor, but after trying almost everything, the doctors couldn't cure him of whatever his ailment was. So he had plan B. He went to see Reverend Easterbrook to get his soul washed. The Reverend tried to help George, but it seemed that what was tormenting him was too strong for just him. So he brought in 6 other priests to perform a super exorcism. The 7 of them took their combined power to cleanse George. During the process, he changed through 7 different demonic personalities, one of which claimed to be the devil. After the super exorcism, George was cured. And probably didn't live past 35 because that's how life went back then. Number 7. the Codex Gigas. Would you read a book that might have been written by the devil? I think that one's a hard pass for me. I'll stick to reading the back of cereal boxes. Well, the Codex Gigas is said to have the devil's actual handwriting, and whoever reads it becomes cursed. Why would you read that? I don't know if I believe that the devil's handwriting is in the book, but I wouldn't want to be wrong just for some light reading. The story goes that back in 1523, Ludovico Spoletano wanted to make the best spaghetti ever, so he summoned the devil. Nah, I'm just kidding. He wanted to answer a series of questions he'd been asked. Exam season is very tough. It's documented that the devil possessed him, grabbed a pen, and started writing. Most of the text has never been decoded except for one sentence that says, "I think it smells like updog." Number 6. Through the Window. This one was written by Redditor Gayreka. It's a story his father told him about when his dad was growing up. He said that when his dad and uncle were younger, his uncle was a bit of a rebellious kid. Never listened, would stay up late, draw dicks on everything. His father told him that it was a big problem, that his uncle was constantly challenging authority and would get in fights with his parents all the time. Well, one night, the whole family heard a blood-curdling scream come from his uncle's room. The family rushed in there and his uncle was freaking out. He said there was a man standing outside his window. Their father went to check for someone but couldn't find anything. His uncle describes the man as wearing a long trench coat and having no face except for glowing red eyes. After this, his uncle was as sweet as pie, became a respectful member of society. So was this a devil encounter? Or was this a story a father told his son so he wouldn't act up? That's healthy parenting. Scare him psychologically, but he'll be a good kid. Number 5, Michael Scott.
No, God!
Not the hilarious character from The Office, Michael Scott was a Scottish mathematician born in 1175 and is considered one of the most brilliant men to come out of Scotland. He traveled through Europe and eventually ended up in Italy. While in Italy, his brilliance didn't go unnoticed. He gained the attention of Emperor Frederick II. Frederick brought Michael into his court as the head astrologer. But when you're a super smart guy back then, people get a little suspicious. It's said he could summon demons to do his bidding, and they would go all over the world to bring him delicacies. And that's just where his power started. There's myths of him defeating a coven of witches that he turned into stone. It's even said he changed the course of the river Steeds. But the most famous one is him summoning the devil to build a road to his castle. His father had just built a shiny new castle and it needed a road. I mean, you don't want to be the only castle in the neighborhood without a road. Like, what do people think? So he called the devil and many demons to build a road for him. He could have just hired contractors. He owed the devil his soul and foresaw that the devil would kill him by dropping a rock on his head. So he always wore a metal cap.
Clever girl.
But one day, he took off his metal cap when entering a church, and a rock fell on his head and killed him. They get you when you least expect. Number 4, John Dee. John Dee was born in 1527 on July 13th. He was an Elizabethan mathematician and astrologer, but he also liked to dabble in the occult. He was into some pretty freaky stuff. Even though he was researching black magic behind closed doors, he managed to work his way up as a man of intellect, becoming the royal astrologer for Queen Mary. However, his little secrets caught up with him, and he was arrested for heresy in 1555. How do you get caught for something back then? The only way you would find out would be if you told people. Like, how was your weekend? Pretty good, you know, sacrificed a goat to the Dark Lord. Anyways, when he got out, he kept digging into the occult. In 1582, he claimed to contact the spirit world. People weren't a fan of this, so he had to move up north to the Manchester Collegiate Church. You can go visit his office to this day. There's the desk that he worked at with a giant burn mark in it. It's said that it's the devil's footprint. I would be pissed. I work all this time to summon the devil. He shows up and he puts his feet on my furniture. Number 3, Robert Johnson. Become one of the greatest musicians who ever lived, and people are going to start rumors about you. Robert Johnson is one of the most talented and influential blues musicians who has ever walked the earth. And a big myth about him is that he sold his soul to the devil to become as great as he did. As the story goes, he was walking down a highway and came across a man that offered him the ability to play the blues like no one has ever done before, but it would cost him his soul. Robert was like, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, what is a soul really? It's like a concept or like whatever. Well, Robert went down in history for his amazing skills and died suspiciously at 27. Number 2, Niccolò Paganini. Said to be the greatest violinist who ever lived. Seemed to be a common theme that back in the day, if you were great at something, they probably thought you sold your soul to the devil. No, it can be that you have like a natural gift and you work super hard, you just made a deal. Well, the same speculation goes for Niccolo. He was an Italian violinist like none other. He was so gifted that he would surpass anyone who ever taught him. He was touring at 15 and probably got hit on a lot. Part of why people probably thought that he had sold his soul to the devil was that he looked so ghoulish. He was tall, skinny, had pale skin, long black hair. He was kind of like a hot Edward Scissorhands. People would even say that they could see the devil hold his violin while he played. I think they were just jealous. Number 1, George Whitefield. Now this one is my favorite for sure. George was a traveling evangelist. He wandered around trying to get people hyped on God. I mean, we've all seen these guys.
Do it, Jesus! A brand new hit! Bam, 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 bam!
In 1740, George was in Ipswich, Massachusetts. He was putting on a banger show. Like, people were going nuts. Apparently, the sermon was so hot and he was bashing the devil so hard that the devil showed up and was like, "You talking?" And George was like, "Yeah, I'm talking." And then he fought the devil. This is like an episode of Maury. George then summoned the holy power to push the devil out. And after that, the devil fell off a cliff and landed on one foot. He's got like a +10 on acrobatics. It's said that the devil's footprint is there to this day. The devil is probably at home like, "Dude, I don't even know you. Why are you talking so much smack?" At number 10, we have a close call. Now, this video will probably scare the hell out of some people, but I think of this as just the perfect representation of how close you can get to sharks without having them tear you to pieces. Now, that is a little freaky. That's a hammerhead shark, and you can see it sweeps in very close, and it looks like it's gonna take a chunk out of our diver, but then he's okay. Coming in at number 9, we have Julie Wolfe. When you think of a canoe trip, you think about peace and calm waters. Every time I get into a canoe, I think I'm in a rom-com and I'm randomly gonna run into Jennifer Aniston and then we're gonna fall in love next to a campfire. Well, Julie Wolfe didn't have that experience at all. Julie was riding her canoe off the coast of California when she got rocked by something strange. It felt as if she had bumped into a rock, but she was way out in the ocean, so there was no way she could have run into land. Turns out, it was a great white shark. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great time to me. Well, it got even worse when the shark bit into her canoe. This tore a hole into it, but Julie still had some time. She started to paddle back to shore and was able to get back to land before the whole thing sunk into the ocean. On the shark's side, he probably thought he was getting a nice snack, and then he just got a mouthful of carbon fiber. That's like when you put some Kraft cheese on your burger, but you forget to take the plastic off. Coming in at number 8, we have Dan Shoesmith. A diving instructor was leading a shark dive, and everything seemed to be going as planned. He took his group down to the bottom of the ocean, they kneeled in the sand, and the sharks started to swim around them. The time underwater was finishing up, and they started to ascend to the surface. Now, normally the sharks would swim away at this point, but they started to follow the group to the surface. Not only that, but it seemed that they were getting closer. Dan got his group of divers to huddle together and stick their fins out to create some distance in case the sharks got close. He then filled a safety buoy full of air and sent it to the surface so the boats would know that he was approaching the surface. When he did this, one of the sharks chased the buoy to the surface. The group of divers waited about 10 meters below the surface for what would have felt like an eternity, but eventually the sharks left and they were able to safely exit the water. Coming in at number 7, we have the Jaws encounter. I had to put a movie one on this list, especially this movie. Think about what your chances of running into a shark are, how much time you spend around water. I know some people who are even afraid of swimming in pools because they think something is going to try and eat them, and this is largely part of this movie. Jaws gave generation after generation an irrational fear of sharks. And yes, it's an irrational fear because you'll see someone who's afraid of sharks wolf down a bunch of high fructose corn syrup like diabetes isn't licking its lips. Steven Spielberg has even said if he could go back in time, he wouldn't.
Mentos gum comes in a durable paperboard gum bottle that can handle just about anything. Try it for yourself.
Make Jaws because it demonized sharks in such a way. But the opening scene of this movie where a girl is getting munched down to that famous donut, donut, donut is still one of the most iconic movie moments ever. It just sucks that so many people became afraid of something that they will probably never see in real life. Coming in at number 6, we have the Australian kayakers. A couple of mates off the coast of Australia were going for a nice kayak ride when they got an unexpected visitor. These guys didn't get a bump like Julie Wolfe, but almost like it was pulled right out of a movie, they saw a fin behind them trailing them, waiting to see if one of them was foolish enough to tip over their kayak. The two men were a little frightened, but they just decided they would would wait it out. One of the men later described the encounter as a dog coming to check out what was going on. They didn't have a lot of options to scare off their curious friend, so they went with slapping the water with their paddles. Turns out that worked perfectly. Coming in at number 5, we have Cops vs. Sharks. No, this isn't the title of the new motion picture that's going to be coming out this fall. It's actually an incident that happened in Australia. It should be no surprise that Australia has back-to-back slots on a list about shark encounters. Well, a couple of police were responding to something that had them out on a little dinghy. I don't know what kind of water crime that could be, but they were out on a very small boat and a 16-foot great white shark swam by the boat. I don't think there's anything in the police training manual about that. Coming in number 4, we have when Sam Jackson got eaten by a shark. Okay, just one more movie one on the list. This one is my favorite Sam Jackson movie moment ever. Sam Jackson is trying to rally the troops in the movie Deep Blue Sea. It's a moment of motivation. It seems like everything is about to turn around. But here's the thing about Deep Blue Sea. It's more of a horror movie than an action movie. And when things seem like they're starting to get good in a horror movie, you know they're about to get so much worse. That clip is so funny. A bunch of them got wetsuits on and everyone is glistening with sweat for some reason. I love every second of it. Cheesy deaths in movies are some of my favorite things. All right, let's move back to real people getting eaten by sharks. Coming in at number 3, we have Bathroom Break. You know, if you're tucked away in a cage, the shark will find some way to get to you. A group of divers were down in a cage taking some photos of a massive shark swimming by when this underwater king hit them with one of these. I don't think you can smell it because you're underwater, but that poop is going to cover every inch of you. You're gonna have poop under your fingernails, poop in your eyebrows. You are gonna become one with the poop. Coming in at number 2, we have Scarier Than It Looks. There wasn't a lot that people watching could do in our next clip. They're just standing around watching in horror. Yeah, it looks like that shark is gonna flip over that little kayak and eat that dude like he's downing a Glizzy Gladiator hot dog. But here's the thing, that's a basking shark. They only eat plankton. They don't even have teeth. So even though that looks like it would be terrifying to be in the water with, it's really just a big vegan swimming out there. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have The Cage Won't Protect You. The thing about shark diving is you want to ensure you're going to see a shark, so sometimes you bring bait. And the bait can get the sharks a little bit excited. A lot of people will go into a cage to try and avoid contact with the shark. But here's the thing about sharks. They are basically a spine, a jaw, and then all muscle and cartilage. So sometimes they can squeeze into very small spaces and you can have something like this happen.
He's in the cage. Oh my God.
Here's something interesting about that clip. There was a diver in the cage with the shark. The shark is thrashing all over the place. You have blood in the water. Eventually the shark works its way out of the cage and then the diver returns to the surface and signals that he is okay and walks away without a scratch and the most amazing story to tell at a party.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have exoplanets. One of the first things spoken about in the 12-minute long anonymous video is that around 25 years ago, we didn't know that planets existed outside of our solar system. While that seems hard to believe, that is actually basically true, keeping in mind that this video was released in 2017. The first exoplanets, which are what planets outside of our solar system are called, were discovered in 1992, which is super recently. The video then goes on to explain that today we have found over 3,400 exoplanets that orbit other suns. This may seem redundant or unimportant, but this is a really important part of our search for alien life. With the vastness of space, there are so many places that need to be searched, so we have to find some place to start, and these planets are the perfect place. It is entirely possible that alien life may thrive off of entirely different things than life as we know it. The things we need to survive might be detrimental to alien life, but how are we supposed to know that when we don't know any aliens? This is why we started our search by looking for places with conditions similar to Earth, which we now call habitable planets. Part of a habitable planet's requirements is that they are orbiting a star, but that they aren't too close or too far from it like we are with the sun. So what the video is trying to get across is that while 25 years ago we didn't know any, we now know of thousands of planets that might be holding some kind of alien life. While we haven't found the proof yet, we at least have a pretty stellar starting point. In our number 9 spot, spot today we have Dr. Brian O'Leary. One thing Anonymous mentioned in the video was an apparent quote from Dr. Brian O'Leary, who's a former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor. The video stated that he said that there is abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been monitoring us for a very long time, and that their appearance is bizarre from any type of traditional materialistic Western point of view, and that these visitors use the technologies of consciousness, they use droids, they use co-rotating magnetic disks for their propulsion systems, which seems to be a common denominator of the UFO phenomenon. I obviously have no idea how I could possibly substantiate these claims, but they certainly are interesting regardless of what you personally believe. This could of course just be nonsense in order to stir up the masses, but it could also be someone who's finally telling us the truth, but we're all just too skeptical at this point to believe it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of what Dr. O'Leary said. Do you think it's a hunk of baloney, or do you think that he just might be telling the truth? In our number 8 spot today, we have the FBI documents. Around the halfway mark, the person in the anonymous video begins to discuss some sort of FBI documents that are apparently unclassified, just sitting there on the website. The video claims that the documents suggest that we've not only been visited by aliens from space, but also beings from other dimensions. The video does explain that the document didn't originate from within the FBI, but rather from a university department head, but that the FBI treated the document with the utmost importance, which is certainly interesting. It's also very important to note, however, that this document was sent in 1947. I'm not sure if that makes the claims more or less likely or credible, but the timing of it definitely seems important, at least to me. While this is one of those things that you have to draw your own conclusions from, in the video it is mentioned that while we are arguing whether or not supposed UFO or alien sightings have really taken place here on Earth or in space, there are real instances of extraterrestrial beings visiting us, but we're just too focused on the debate to open our eyes and see for ourselves. In our number 7 spot today, we have esoteric matters. After the discussion of the FBI documents, there is a claim that these beings that have apparently been visiting us are coming not from a planet as we think of it, but rather some sort of etheric planet that interpenetrates with our own, but that we are unable to perceive. Apparently, if you're a student of esoteric matters, these concepts will make a lot more sense to you, or so this anonymous video claims. Apparently, these alien beings are able to make a conscious decision to enter our plane, and in that same respect, they're also to make a decision to disappear from our view. Apparently, they're visiting us as they are thinking about settling here on our plane, and that they are coming here peacefully. During these visits, they are also said to have technology that would destroy any sort of attack made on them, so it is advised that if they do make themselves visible to us, we do not attack or make them feel threatened. I'm not so sure about this one, but at the end of the day, I am certainly no student of esoteric matters, so maybe it's just something that my brain cannot comprehend with the knowledge I currently have. In our number 6 spot today, we have this UFO footage. This UFO footage is coming from another anonymous video which claims that real UFO footage is always censored, and that this video has been previously censored, but they were here to expose the truth. It is unclear where this UFO video was taken, and at the end of the day, I'm no expert in debunking these things, so it's tough to say whether or not it's real, but let's all just take a look and you can judge for yourselves. I know that wasn't the most exciting video, but what do we think aliens are going to be doing if they really are visiting us? What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this video is really showing some sort of UFO? And if you do you think it's aliens or just some sort of secret project that we aren't privy to? In our number 5 spot today, we have perseverance. A point that was made in the video is something that we are actually now watching happen in real time, and that is the mission to Mars for the Perseverance rover that is currently there digging around in the soil. The video stated that Mars may hold signs of an ancient environment that may have been favorable to microbial life. Well, that is exactly true, and the reason the rover is there at all. The Perseverance rover launched from Earth on July 30th, 2020 and made an incredible and successful landing on Mars on February 18th, 2021. While the rover has provided us with some incredible high-definition photos of the red planet, which truly are incredible to look at, its main objective is to dig around and search for ancient signs of life, collecting rock and soil samples for a possible return to Earth for further research. While Mars' thin atmosphere is unable to shield the planet from the high amounts of radiation coming from space now, it is thought that the atmosphere did once act as a better shield, and that the environment of Mars may have once been a great host for life, which is exactly why this mission is so important. While when the anonymous video was first released, we were still a ways away from the Perseverance mission taking place, it's really cool to see how it has come to fruition, and it's exciting to see the new photos and discoveries that are made each day. In our number 4 spot today, we have UFO footage, part 2. We have to include just one more video of what is claimed to be proof of aliens visiting us on Earth before we get back into the more science-y top 3 points. This is another video that was uploaded by a member of Anonymous, and it comes from 2017. The video features a dark sky, but it shows what looks like some sort of aircraft with a few flashing lights, and it seems like it is able to basically just hover there. Not long after the video starts, another mysterious UFO seemingly joins the first one, and the two are just seen floating there. What do you guys think these could be? I obviously don't know what an alien aircraft would look like, so it's tough to say if this is a realistic example or not. All I know is that if this isn't someone playing a trick and they really saw this in the sky, I have no other possible explanations of what it could be. In our number 3 spot today, we have TRAPPIST-1. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. One of the things Anonymous mentioned in the video was a nearby star called TRAPPIST-1. The video didn't go into too much detail about this, but I'm here to do that now so we can all know what they were talking about. While TRAPPIST-1 is a star, the revelation that the video spoke about was that this star has an entire solar system of Earth-like planets. This discovery first came in 2017, and upon further research, in 2018 it was revealed that some of the planets just may harbor even more water than Earth does. Some of the planets are a little too close to the star, so the water is more atmospheric water vapor. The ones in the middle have liquid water, like us, and the furthest ones have ice. TRAPPIST-1 is now the most thoroughly known planetary system apart from ours, which is kinda cool. While the Anonymous video made it seem like there was a full-blown advanced alien civilization living in this solar system, there still might be potential for some form of microbial life that we just haven't quite found yet. And that is very cool. In our number 2 spot today, we have Enceladus. If you had heard of Enceladus before the Anonymous video, there's a good chance you knew it as basically an icy snowball floating around in space, or perhaps you simply knew it as a small moon of Saturn with a diameter of 502 kilometers. But as it turns out, this small moon might hold some pretty amazing potential. It was discovered that this moon has hydrothermal processes going on underneath its crust. To us non-scientists, that means next to nothing, but what if I said that means that it just might have all of the requirements for life, and that it is becoming a greater possibility that we might find microbial life there. Basically, this moon has an icy shell for a surface and then a rocky interior, but between those two layers is a warm ocean, and this ocean is where scientists think the life is most likely to be. This discovery came almost accidentally when the Cassini orbiter arrived to Saturn in 2005, and it found water plumes shooting out of the cracks in the surface of the moon, which made scientists realize that it just may be geologically active. Through more research and by flying the orbiter through the water, by the time 2015 rolled around, scientists knew that it was holding all of the keys to life. While this little moon was never the original focus of research, it quickly took over with its incredibly exciting potential. In our number 1 spot today, we have Europa. We've got another moon to talk about that was mentioned in the video that also just might be holding the keys to us finding alien life, but this time we're taking it over to Jupiter and its icy moon, Europa. Europa has been a point of interest for a while after NASA's Galileo Jupiter probe in the 1990s 1990s revealed an unusually warm spot in Europa's cold surface. In March of 2014, the Hubble telescope detected what scientists thought might be a plume of water vapor, but the caution turned to cautious excitement and optimism in February of 2016 when the telescope caught another, much larger plume in the same spot. This has led to the creation of the Europa Clipper mission. While this mission doesn't yet have a set date, it will see an orbiter flying to Europa to fly through these plumes in an attempt to see what they are made out of, similar to the one we just talked about, to see if it really is holding the key to life, or maybe even life itself. One of the scientists on the Clipper mission, Robert Pappalardo, explained that if there is life on Europa, it almost certainly was completely independent from the origin of life on Earth. That would mean the origin of life must be pretty easy throughout the galaxy and beyond.
A new UFO sighting took place tonight. This footage was filmed in the USA. Thermal analysis shows what could be a smaller ship flying around, and a much larger mothership behind it. Save and share this video before it's too late.
Oh my god, that is so scary. Also, why do they have to say save and share this video before it's too late? That just creeps me out. Don't say things like that. Like, that and the music, it just makes me think that it's the end of the world. That looked like an alien ship, and the whole lightning and spooky atmosphere is not helping. Oh no, the aliens are coming. We gotta prepare. We need a secret underground bunker. Shut up, don't say that, Chris. I know, but don't scare me.
A 30-second video from Jharkhand is going viral all over the internet. In the video, a strange, eerie-looking human figure can be seen strolling down the road. The video was apparently recorded on the Chadwa Dam Bridge in the Hazaribagh district by some bikers. Seeing that, some are saying that it is an alien and some are claiming it to be a ghost. After the appearance, there has been a war on the social media sites among the people to determine the exact type of supernatural being that the creature is.
Maybe it's a ghost alien. Maybe it's a ghost and an alien, a ghost alien. Why is it so creepy? Like, it's so lanky and weird. But at the same time, I feel like aliens are more stealthy than that, you know? Like, I feel like it wouldn't just be walking like, oh, hey yo, what's up, you know? Like, just for everyone to see. They've been stealthy and hiding themselves for years, potentially, on Earth. So why would they just reveal themselves now? Doesn't really make sense. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe he's just not a good alien. Maybe that's what it is. But it's really creepy. Like, legs were so skinny. Like, that did not look like a human. That looked like a creature of some sort. Ugh. Also, alien, if you're watching this video, just kidding. You're beautiful. Love you.
I got it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
What the hell? That strange light in the sky is one of 1,100 UFO sightings in Canada last year. According to the annual survey released by Ufology Research of Manitoba, there are at least 3 such sightings in the country every day.
UFO reports are still a thing. People are reporting them in greater and greater numbers every year.
I'm never going to BC. It's beautiful there. And I was like, I want to go this summer. Yeah. 3 sightings of UFOs per day? Yeah, that's where they're hiding. They're hiding in the wilderness there. Them and the Bigfoot, they're just hiding there together. Or maybe that was Bigfoot roaming through the forest shining his flashlight. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's not even an alien after all. Maybe it's Bigfoot. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today we are looking at the top 10 real alien encounters caught on camera, and it's pretty spooky so far. And if you guys believe in aliens, then make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Also, comment something down below, because I like to read your comments. With that being said, let's dive on into the video.
Just about 4:45, and take a look at this viral video from La Junta in southeastern Colorado. All right, Vivian Gomez wrote on Facebook that her security camera captured this on Sunday morning. There are people on Facebook who say it looks like Dobby from Harry Potter, or a ghost or an alien, or a kid in flip-flops and underwear.
Maybe that. Maybe it's a kid in flip-flops and underwear, like, na 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 na. I can't see an alien doing the chicken dance. It has to be a kid. Come on. But also, it does look like Dobby. It's not Dobby. Dobby. I feel like she said it weird. Anyways, it does look like Dobby from Harry Potter. That is a house elf for sure, okay? He was like, Harry Potter must not come to Hogwarts. Bad Dobby, bad Dobby. And then that was him leaving after the cake got. If you know Harry Potter, then you know. What the hell is that? Ew. Oh, I literally got the shills. I literally got the chills watching that. Like, this alien was trying to be stealthy and hide behind some tombstones, but it wasn't working. Look at its head. That is massive. That's a massive alien head. That is terrifying. That's like the creature from Predator. I'm sorry. I don't like that thing at all. That cemetery needs to be burned down. No, just no.
I mean, if you think that looks like a plane, I just don't get it. I'm looking at it carefully, and of course, you know, I'm driving in the middle of traffic. I'm trying to get as close as I can to it, and I just cannot figure out what the hell I'm looking at.
That is for sure UFO. Like, that literally looks like a spacecraft. Either that, or it's Ron and Harry going to Hogwarts in their flying car. That's also what it looks like. Man, we got the freaking house elf, and now we got, like, this is just confirmation that Hogwarts is real. Hogwarts is real, man. Yo, wizard Harry. Yo, wizard Lindsay. Wish I was. Vada Kedavra. Lindsay Porter. Oh my. That is an alien. That's an alien. Either that or someone is really good at special effects and has a really expensive alien costume. Because it doesn't really make sense to me. Wouldn't an alien like be like, oh snap, there's a human, or something, and make them forget? You know, like the Men in Black, how they have the little flashy light. I feel like an alien just like points at you and then you forget that you saw an alien. Wouldn't you think, like, this is just too casual, him just, oh hey, what's up? Yeah, you can videotape me. Make sure you get this angle. Yeah, I'll just do my slow model walk. You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Also, this alien looks like the one from Scooby-Doo. It's with the green humanoid head. It's Scooby-Doo. Anyway.
Check out this video from one of our viewers, Mash Hatai. He said he woke up at about 2:30 this morning, get a drink of water, and this is what he saw in the sky. Certainly caught his eye. He took the video from Kaka'ako and thinks the lights were over Central or West Oahu, hard to tell from his vantage point. As you can see, the two bright lights, and then slowly a third light appears. Hatai believes he saw about 8 to 10 of the lights total.
What the hell? Guys, aliens might be real, and it's scary to say that out loud. How else do you explain this? Like, also let me know in the comments below if you've ever had a creepy alien encounter, because now I want to know. Let me know in the comments below.
Something is in the sky. What is that?
This video was taken by Misitina Sape at 8:26 Tuesday night near Haleakala Avenue in Nanakuli. Not long after, a woman named Mariah spotted the same thing passing over Princess Kahanu Estates.
I don't know, I looked up. And then I was like, oh, started calling my husband in because we was all in the garage. I was like, hey, you look up there. See what I see. They all said, yeah.
The 38-year-old says she's never really been a believer in UFOs, but the bright blue object had them so intrigued, they jumped in the car and started following it.
I don't know what it was. This one was going so fast.
The journey ended less than 3 miles from where it began, on Farrington Highway in front of the Board of Water Supply building, after the object appeared to drop into the ocean.
Oh my god, do the aliens live in the ocean? Like, was it just returning home? Maybe that's why we haven't found them, because they store their spacecraft underwater in the depths in Mariana's Trench. Love that band. But like, in the depths down there, that's where the aliens are hiding, where we can't go. Wow. Maybe that's where they are. Also, they are brave for following this. They're like, yeah, let's just get in the car and follow this potential UFO that could kill us. Yeah, let's just do it. Typical Tuesday.
Now it is darkened outside. Temperatures are sitting at 61 in Buffalo. We have a northerly wind at 7. Good sleeping weather tonight, folks. What was that? Did anybody see that thing go past? Did we just see a shooting star? Good sleeping weather tonight, folks. What was that? Did anybody see that thing?
Nothing impressive compared to the other ones. That was probably just a shooting star. This guy was just trying to hype it up. He's like, how can I make the news more interesting? Whoa, did everyone see that? No, that wasn't a piece of my dander flying by the screen. It was actually UFO. So, I'm famous now. I caught it on camera.
The Pentagon has confirmed a strange and unexpected sight captured by Navy personnel off the coast of California. The video shows flying pyramid-shaped objects hovering above the USS Russell and another warship.
It was leaked by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. He's also shared 3 images from the USS Omaha showing an unknown spherical craft. The Pentagon has confirmed its unidentified aerial phenomena task force, what a task force that is examining the footage.
That guy got really into the story. I think he believes in aliens. He's like, spherical crafts, yeah, aliens. That's literally what he sounded like. The Pentagon revealed that, like, it was a UFO. But UFO is technically unidentified flying object. So it doesn't mean that it's an ET, it just means that they don't know what the hell it was, which makes me feel better. So maybe it's not aliens, maybe it's just like a drone. I don't know. I'm scared.
Navy pilots say they saw something that defies the limits of known aviation technology. Oh my gosh. They've been popping up around our national security facilities and baffling veteran military personnel.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
And civilians, including commercial airline pilots, are also seeing it.
We just had something go right over the top of us.
Here's a rendering of what an American Airlines pilot reported.
I hate to say this looked like a long cylindrical object. It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top.
Okay, that scares me for a number of reasons. Number one, they said that there was a whole bunch of them flying in the sky. Hello? Are aliens trying to invade Earth now? Like, why can't we just live side by side in peace? Like, what happened to we come in peace? Like, come on, be a good alien. Number two, what if it's like another country spy? Like, I read about this. It could be another country spying on us through these craft type things. I don't know. Either way, it's spooky and I'm scared.
An unidentified aerial phenomenon dropped down on the Florida coast. First thing in the morning we drove to the beach to find it. This is what we saw when we got there. We tried to get closer, but the officers on the beach saw us. When we got home, this man was at our house. For days we have seen suspicious vehicles in front of our place. If anyone knows what we should do, please let us know.
You need to move. That's what you should do. A UFO literally crashed down on the beach by your house. That's time to pack up and leave, okay? And literally they're describing like the men in black coming there and like, oh, so you see anything suspicious lately? Any ETs, UFOs? Let me know. That is scary, seriously. Pack up and get the heck out of there. Again, wait, hold up. I think I just put 2 and 2 together. I think I just solved this whole alien thing. Again, it crashed down by water. What if this UFO was trying to enter the water? Like I said before, aliens actually live deep down below in the ocean. Again, this kind of proves it. So, just saying. Just saying.
In at number 10. This is probably the earliest reported alien encounter that I've come across on the internet. Back in 1896, a man was traveling to Lodi, California by horse and carriage when all of a sudden his horses got startled by something in the distance. The man said that he can see 3 strange beings on the side of the road. These odd-looking creatures were very skinny and stood at about 7 feet tall. They were all bald, except they had a velvet soft material that covered their entire body. They spoke in a strange language, and they were holding a weird mineral that emitted a very bright light. The aliens tried to pick up the man, but he was too heavy for them. Eventually they moved away and they began to float above the ground. The man followed them, and then he said that they floated into a huge, like, cigar-shaped spaceship into the air, and he never saw them again. Sounds to me like this guy is either seriously sleep deprived or he was definitely smoking something. A terrifying alien abduction, breaks onto this list at number 9. Amy Rylance probably had the most terrifying moment of her life when she was apparently abducted by an alien back in October 2001. Her friend Petra woke up one night and saw Amy being carried in a sleeping position out through the window on a beam of light to a huge ship. It sounds to me like Petra probably took too many drugs that night. I don't know.
No, I don't drink. I don't take drugs at all. I'm just a normal person.
Well, there goes my theory. Petra ran to wake up Amy's husband, but by the time they made it back downstairs, Amy was gone. The curtain was ripped and the bushes outside of the window were burnt. They called the police, but they obviously didn't take them seriously because their story sounds absolutely insane. But before you write their story off, listen to this. Amy's husband received a call from a woman who lives 8 hours away. She said that she is with Amy at a hospital who is getting treatment for being dazed and dehydrated.
I have other marks from the tests that they did on me.
What sort of tests?
Just getting kind of DNA samples, and they didn't do anything bad to me, so it was wholly a good experience from my point of view.
No one has any logical explanation as to how she traveled such a far distance in such a short time frame. Amy said she remembers laying on a bed with tall figures leaning over her, and then they were taking a bunch of samples. So I don't know what was going on. And now a river abduction comes in at number 8. In 1979, 2 co-workers were fishing off a pier when they heard a strange buzzing sound. When they took a look around, they saw a mysterious flashing blue lights. A UFO started to come down closer to them, and 3 alien-looking creatures dragged them on board of the spacecraft. Inside, the 2 co-workers were heavily examined for about 20 minutes before they were levitated back to the pier. After the incident, they ran to the police station to report what happened to them.
I was hunting a place to run, but it was nowhere to run. There was water in the front, water on the side, but immediately when they got a hold of us, I felt a little sharp something, and they must have gave me a shot to relax me.
Calvin, sorry. We have to stop you for a second because this must have been absolutely terrifying. I mean, you're in a UFO with aliens, and what are they doing to you? They're sort of giving you an MRI and examination. That's what you thought was happening.
Of course, no one believed them, and they were just seen as 2 crazy people. And now at number 7, whether you call this one lucky or unlucky, we have the Clayton and Donna Lee abduction. A husband and wife from Texas are claiming that they have been abducted by aliens on multiple occasions, not just one time. They struck multiple times. Donna Lee reported that she was taken while she was pregnant, and she lost her child due to the alien abduction. Maybe they took it? I don't know. Her husband Clayton said that they have been abducted numerous times throughout his life, and he remembers his first abduction happened when he was a little boy at a park. He remembered floating into the sky and seeing stars and then complete darkness before he passed out. He even has a scar on his side and believes that it was caused by aliens who were attempting to take DNA samples from him.
Did you see the aliens?
Yes.
What did they look like?
What I saw on that particular visit, they were tall, slender, blonde, looked human, but not human, not quite human.
All right.
They didn't really use their voices to talk. For me, about being abducted is they bring me back. I'm here.
Well, maybe they won't someday, Donna. Maybe they'll take you to wherever they live.
They might not, but so far they have. So you can't live in that kind of fear and still have a life.
What was the last time?
Sounds like she enjoys being abducted. I don't know. A scary alien encounter brings us to number 6. Barney and Betty Hill were driving back to their house after they took a vacation in Niagara Falls. While driving, they saw a light in the sky that looked like it was getting closer to them. Eventually, it appeared as a huge shape hovering over their car. Barney got out and used his binoculars to look up above them. He was able to see 11 humanoid figures in shiny black uniforms and capes, and they were all watching them. If that was me, I'd race into my car and drive faster than Van Diesel and get the hell out of there. That's exactly what they tried to do, but they both said that they experienced a strange buzzing sensation, but they were able to make it back home alive. But they weren't untouched. Their clothes have been torn in strange places, And Betty found a strange pink residue on her dress. She also experienced really intense and vivid dreams about the experience, and she even remembers having skin samples taken from her and injections were put into her belly button. Here is an actual audio clip from a hypnosis session that the couple had after their encounter. Listen to this.
Alright, Captain, what is he? You're still asleep, but you can see it all clearly. Looks like a big pancake with windows. Get away from me!
Something very traumatic had happened to them.
The Travis Walton abduction story crashes onto this list at number 5. This story is actually really interesting. Let's travel back to November 1975, where 6 forestry workers in Arizona reported seeing their work colleague Travis Walton blasted through the air in a beam of light that came from a UFO.
$1.99. That's right, just $1.99. Get Peacock for only $1.99 a month for 12 months.
They called the police and reported him as missing, but during the investigation, the police suspected that the workers actually murdered Travis Walton and that they had disposed of the body. But this is where things get pretty interesting. 5 days later, Travis reappeared and he claimed that he was abducted by aliens. He said that he woke up on a table and he was surrounded by small figures in orange gowns. Maybe he woke up in a prison. I don't know. Maybe there is an answer for that. Well, he said that their skin was very smooth, but it was chalky, and their bald heads were too big for their bodies. He managed to escape from the aliens, but he went into a room that had humans in it, but they were dressed in blue uniforms. This makes it seem like more of a prison. Well, they never spoke to him, but they captured him and put a gas mask on him, and he lost consciousness. But he does remember waking up confused on a strange road in Arizona. A strange alien abduction case is at number 4. Hillary Porter is known as the woman who has been abducted by aliens more times than she can count.
And you believe that you may have something inside your right ear.
Yes, definitely.
Explain.
A little bit like a telescope. It's got 3 sections,
yes.
Very, very minute. Then the rest goes down into my flesh, into the ear. Okay. And this thing sometimes comes right out to the very edge. It depends what I'm doing. It seems like it.
So you sometimes feel it moving.
Oh, yeah, you got that feel, and it's slightly longer some days and retracts a tiny bit. And then it was like I was just laying down to go to sleep, and like a little voice came from it and said, "Good night."
Okay.
Okay, how creepy would that be? The first encounter that she remembers was when she was like 5 years old and she was playing behind her home. She said that she remembers seeing a reptile-looking alien standing in front of her. It had scaly skin, black holes on the nose, and a little mouth. She said that the creature grabbed her arms and pulled her underneath a disc that was located in the fields. They performed a ton of painful tests on her, and then they let her go hours later. She said that she'd been abducted a bunch of times, and she actually suffered from migraines and feels really sick. Sometimes she even wakes up with fresh scars or bruises, or there are bloody marks and stains on her clothes or bed sheets. Okay, a bizarre alien abduction takes us to number 3. Back in October 1957, a man named Antonio Boris claimed that he saw a red star in the sky. The light traveled closer to him until Antonio was able to see that it was a frickin' spaceship. It landed on its 3 legs in the nearby field. Antonio tried to escape on his tractor, and he was grabbed by a strange creature with big blue eyes. He claimed that he was taken aboard of the spaceship, where he was covered by a gel-like substance, and that's so that they can crossbreed. Eventually, he was taken off to the ship, and he landed on Earth 4 hours later. He was taken to a hospital where they found burns on his body and lesions. He also felt nauseous and had extremely severe headaches. The doctor later diagnosed him as suffering from radiation sickness. We have another disturbing alien encounter, and this brings us to number 2. Peter Corey remembers one night back in 1988 as the day that he was abducted by aliens. He was laying in his bed when all of a sudden he felt something grab him by his ankle. He instantly felt pins and needles, and then he couldn't feel his body anymore. He was paralyzed. When he woke up, he saw 3 strange looking creatures around his bed just staring at him. They had gold skin with tiny slits for mouths. They had large black eyes, and he said that they can tell that the aliens communicated telepathically. They inserted a needle into his skull, and then he just blacked out. If you thought that was bad, his second alien encounter was even worse. He said that the female aliens with long white hair appeared over his bed, and they tried to mate with him. After the encounter, he saw lots of white hairs on his bed, so he had the DNA analyzed, and it was confirmed that this hair was biologically different from human hair. I can't even deal with this story, so let's move on. The abduction of Jesse Long tops this list at number 1. This alien encounter is probably the most popular story out there, so some of you guys might have heard of it. Jesse was just 5 years old when he claimed that he was abducted by aliens for the first time. He said that he was exploring the woods with his brother when all of a sudden they found a round structure in a clearing. A tall, mysterious figure approached the boys and paralyzed them. Jesse said that he remembers being taken to a spacecraft and placed onto a cold table where he felt his legs being poked and prodded by the tall figures. Over the years, Jesse said that he has been abducted many times. He said that he was being constantly experimented on, and they even took sperm samples that they used to crossbreed with a female alien.
Placed on a table, I was presented with a baby, was told, "This is your child."
I don't know about you guys, but that is probably the most disturbing story I've ever heard of. I'm actually so terrified. I really hope that aliens don't come find me if they're actually out there somewhere.
At number 10, we have Jay Frazina in the Austrian caves. If the show Planet Earth has taught me anything, it's that caves are dark and beautiful ecosystems that are teeming with life. And in this video, there's a shot of some of that life that seems to be something I've never seen before. In this video, Jay Frazina is on a little hiking trip in Austria. She's with a whole group, so it seems like she should be pretty safe. Unless you're the one person on the tour who they forget and then you get stuck in the cave and then you're like on the side of a mountain for the rest of your life getting attacked by bears. That could happen. Well, this mountain tour leads to a cave and then they start to check it out. Caves are really one of the marvels of the world. Just then she's surprised by some sort of creature.
There's someone climbing up the wall. It's an iceman. It's a ghost. Jesus, what is that? Do you see that? Oh my God.
What the hell is that thing? It looks like some sort of lizard man working its way up the wall with ease. It's really far away, so it's super hard to tell what this thing is or how big it is, but it's some sort of beast man living in the cave, climbing up the walls. That's what it looks like. I'm gonna say just let this thing be and don't bother checking it out. At number 9, we have the Risa Tunnels creature. So during World War II, the Germans wanted to build some sort of tunnels in the Owl Mountains, all the way over in Poland. Why did they want to do this? Well, we have no idea. Hitler was into all sorts of weird stuff. He had troops out there looking for magical artifacts. I guess if he won the war, he wanted to be a part-time warlock. Well, some people not so long ago wanted to go check out these tunnels to see what was going on in them, and they were in for a bit of a shock. This group of dudes was walking through when they saw this. Here's another man just running around in caves, I guess. Is there a whole world of things underneath us that we don't know about? That thing did look kind of like a humanoid. It looks like it was running around on 2 legs, but obviously it was moving very fast because by the time they turned the corner to look at it, it was gone. At number 8, we have Satan's Cave. Well, if you're a kid growing up in Minneapolis, I can imagine you get bored really quick, so finding a cave to walk around in probably sounds better than smoking weed in the park with all your friends and complaining about your mom. Now, this group of kids went into some caves underneath Minneapolis in search of what's called Satan's Cave. They end up walking through what kind of looks like a sewer with a bunch of graffiti on the walls and some strange demonic faces that have been carved all over the place. Now, this is super strange, but they want to get to Satan's Cave, so they continue past the demonic Art Deco. Eventually, they get to a tunnel that heads straight down so far you can't see the bottom of it. This could be what they were looking for, but naturally, they were like, screw this, and decide to turn back and exit the cave. Probably a smart move. At number 7, we have Train Tunnel Surprise. So what's a tunnel and what's a cave? It's kind of like a tomato situation. They're both holes in the ground where everything is dark and spooky. So I'm probably gonna throw a few tunnels on this list, and I don't care what you guys say because who cares? It's a tunnel or a cave, it doesn't matter. Well, a bunch of teens thought it would be a good idea to try and walk through a train tunnel in the middle of the night. These tunnels are right next to Odell Lake in Oregon. And usually there's large transport trains moving through them. Well, guess what happened while they were crossing through? A train showed up. Yeah, who would have thought of that? A train coming along train tracks? Well, these kids had to jump off the tracks and press themselves against the walls while standing in some gross swamp water so the train didn't run them over. Luckily, nobody was hurt. All right, guys, at number 6, we have lost. Okay, getting lost in a cave is one thing. You could probably last for at least a few days until people found you. But getting lost in a cave underwater while you're free diving, you have minutes before your air runs out. Well, Kodiak Moraski was doing some sport fishing while free diving. He was chasing down a little lobster and then got a little too far into a cave. This got him all turned around and he couldn't find his way out. He started to panic, but luckily he was able to find which way he came in. I guess the scary encounter in this cave was almost drowning to death.
You're fine, just breathe off the rig, Tina.
I gotta get some.
Put the regulator in your mouth.
Wow, I don't know what's going on.
At number 5, we have Nick in the Caves. Okay, this one has got a lot going on. This starts with a Russian YouTuber named Nick. He's got a channel where he explores creepy caves and places like that. On one episode, he decides to explore some old Russian caves with some friends. While exploring, he gets into a section that is so tight he has to take his backpack off and leave it behind. And then he gets separated from his friends. He explores a bit without his stuff and then comes to some strange sections. There's a part with a jug, it's set up to catch water, but it's like, who is that for? This is in a cave in the middle of nowhere. Eventually he's freaked out and he heads back the way he came. He gets back to his backpack and he sees that it's been opened and his stuff is scattered everywhere. Who or what did this? While he's collecting his things, you can see a pair of eyes in the reflection of the camera. He doesn't see this until he reviews the footage, but you can see these dark eyes peering at him through the darkness. It's very creepy. My hair is standing up just talking about it. At number 4, we have big ol' spider. All right, this one is simple. Mikael Krosberg was in a cave in Laos and then he found a giant spider. He said it was as big as a pizza. That's super gross. This thing is so big it looks like it could eat a pug. Honestly, to be number 4 on the list, that's all you need. You don't need to be something supernatural or like some demon from another dimension. It just needs to be a super gross spider because I think they're disgusting and I don't want anything to do with them. That's how you get number 4 on this list. At number 3, we have the Cave of Screaming Terror. Okay, right off the bat, you call a place the Cave of Screaming Terror, and I'm not going to visit. I don't think anyone in their right mind would think this is a fun place to check out. While you're at it, why don't you go check out the House of the Soul Suckers, or the Forest of Getting Kicked in the Nuts? Well, this one dude went for a swim in the cave because most of the cave is submerged, so if you're gonna go inside, you have to swim. And he doesn't even bring a boat to go in. He's just straight up swimming in it. That's asking for some cave creature to pull you down and rip your insides out. The dude swimming was Donnell Buckley, and while he was going for his nice little float through the cave, he started to hear this. I don't know if that's a bird or whatever that could be, but whatever it is, Donnell didn't want to figure out where it was coming from, and he beelined it out of there. Good idea. At number 2, we have MJ in the Cave. The ghost of Michael Jackson was attacking people in a cave and it was all caught on camera. Nah, I'm just lying to you guys because that's fun for me. We're not talking about the famous pop star Michael Jackson. We're talking about the YouTuber Mark Johnson, of course. He was exploring the Cave of the Winds in Colorado when several paranormal encounters happened. First, we have this weird noise that kind of sounds like a ghost farting or dropping a massive turd.
Probably kick on the spirit box here in a minute in that other room.
Do you think you still have to crap in the afterlife? Do you believe in ghost poops? Please, let us know your thoughts in the comments. It's not long after this that we see another paranormal encounter. An orb! I don't know much about ghosts because I don't spend my time watching Ghost Hunters. I've got better things to do, like literally anything else. But those orbs are supposed to be ghosts walking around doing like ghost stuff, like slamming doors and watching you sleep. Okay, you guys, we're on to number 1 now. And the number 1 spot on our list goes to an account from a parkouring dog. Oh, he's so cute. You guys have probably seen this dog all over the internet. His name is Tret. He's a pit bull and he can climb trees and do all sorts of cool stunts. Well, one day his owner was taking this good old boy out for a walk when he came across an old well. A well is basically a cave. It's just like sticking in a different direction. You guys know. Wells are still in the theme of caves, especially if they're old and abandoned. Tret's owner hears something weird coming out of the well, so he decides to take a cool little video, and then we see this happen.
Колодце что-то шипит. Может, ужик?
What the hell is that? It definitely certainly doesn't look like something that should be hanging out in a forest. It looks like something that came out of the gates of hell. But let me know what you guys think of this thing in the comments, and let me know if you thought this one was deserving of the #1 spot.
Starting us off with number 10 is 17 Hours. This sort of reminds me of the book called Touching the Void, where these two guys are climbing this glacier or mountain, and something goes wrong and one of them has to cut the rope and let the other one loose, otherwise they were both gonna die, and the one who gets cut off lands in this crevice and actually survives. Either way, this one was shared by Reddit user Beach Knoll, whose grandpa had just gotten back from World War II and decided exploring was his new hobby. Him and his friends went into Mammoth Cave despite it being on privately owned property. Laws were a lot more lax back then, clearly. Either way, while in there with their flashlights, they had a group of people somewhere else in the cave because of all the echoing. They quickly cut the lights since the sounds didn't seem very friendly, and they waited. His grandpa and friends went deeper into the cave to lose them, and imagine this level of darkness where you can't even see your own hand in front of you. It's like a black hole with just no light coming in. They then spent 17 hours in there hiding, and the only thing getting them through it was one of their friends saying, "We didn't survive that to die in here," obviously referring to the war. And no, you didn't, my friend, so you're gonna survive that. Coming in at number 9 is a secret society. This one's from Reddit user Ludovico Specs and was about the basement that was under his college language lab. Turns out the place was turned into some sort of secret society in the 1800s, and the whole building used to belong to them at one point. It had hospital lights all over it, which were always just very creepy. There's an inch of water on the floor too, but the weirdest part was the main room. It had vaulted ceilings supported by pillars that had stone skulls mounted on top of them. On top of the skulls were metal spikes, which is just sus as well. Why would the secret society need just skulls on poles? It's weird. The front room also had this also the backstage area that had a chair with a bunch of questions written on it, like were they a secret society or a cult? Now the user thought his discovery was pretty cool, so he came back the next night with some of his friends to show them. The night after that, he tried coming back again, but it had been mysteriously padlocked. No one wanted him snooping, evidently. And number 8, we have the closet. This one would have sent me running for the hills and was shared by You See The Thing Is on Reddit. The police had confiscated this house from a biker gang a few years back, and it had sat empty ever since. So the user who works at an insurance company had to go to the house and assess its damage. We already know insurance people always screw you over, so okay. Now while in there, he described the house as pretty normal, you know, white walls, red plywood flooring, the door locks weren't rusted yet, so it was all pretty good, pretty normal. But then they opened the linen closet to see deep scratch marks all over the inside and dents like someone was trying to escape from inside of there. The worst part was that right on the back wall was this red splatter that had been painted over but was still very visible. But the user's thoughts went to the person finally escaping to then somehow getting which is beyond screwed up, but I mean the scratch marks, the dents, like it makes sense. Filling at number 7 slot is Choo Choo. Now this one was shared by Reddit user Hi Dingy Doo, who shared that he used to walk along this old abandoned railroad line just to observe some wildlife, which sounds really peaceful actually, and I'm sure it was until this encounter. Over the years, the metal tracks rusted and were taken out, and all the equipment was also taken away. The whole thing became overgrown with shrubs and weeds, and so to an outside perspective, you never really would have been able to tell it had been a train track ever. Either way, one night the user went walking there with a friend, and out of nowhere, they hear a voice saying choo choo. As they turned around to see this old smiling man crouched in the bushes, just staring at them from the dark shadows, like, who the hell are you, bro? Like, I'm just trying to vibe and observe some wildlife, like, who the frick are you? Oh, hell no! I would have literally just kicked the old man. I'm really not as violent as you guys think I am, but like, I will kick people if I have to. I'm not even worried about it. Now, at number 6 are the cats. This one makes my blood boil and was shared by Redditor Jetstream Wolf 12. They shared that there's this one hotel in their hometown that's super run down and that everyone just kind of breaks into fun. So they and 2 friends decided to crawl into the basement from a side entrance. Initially, all they saw was graffiti, but as they went upstairs, they saw bloodstains all over the floor. Was someone murdered there? Find out in a second. Now they see a bunch of dead cats that have been dragged around this room and come to the realization it's their blood. That was all they had to see before running the frick out of there. Like, no. That would have been me before some serial killer in the back just like hits me like she was annoying. Coming in at number 5 is the ice plant. This one was shared by Redditor Digital is 303, who is very into urban urban exploration as a teenager. See, I was more into Gossip Girl and reading than I was exploring abandoned buildings, but to each their own. I never judge. Outwardly. Now either way, there was this old ice plant near the user's house that had burned down 35 to 30 years beforehand, which is very ironic. You're an ice plant and you burned it down. Bit of shocking behavior. Either way, the place was super overgrown, and as the user was exploring the mangled concrete and rebar, everything seemed just normal and old and burned. Disappointed, the user went home, but a few days later they hear that a corpse was pulled out of the plant by the police. The user had literally walked past a dead body and had no idea. Like, dude, open your eyes or your nose. How do you not smell a dead corpse? Apparently they smell like proper Like, was your nose blocked that day, bro? What's going on? At number 4 is the cleanup. Abandoned mental hospitals are one place you will just absolutely never find me. Too much pain and suffering has been endured in these places, especially from the way they used to be treated. So this one comes from Reddit user Slothcopter, who said they explored this abandoned mental hospital that opened up sometime in the 1800s. They opened this freezer inside to find mold all over it and inside of it, and in the past they had used it to put dead bodies in there. So did those bodies mold? Did the mold come from something else? I don't know. Now in another hallway they found the word blood written in blood since they had it tested, and the word high written in spray paint, which clearly meant others had explored this place before this person did. Which is not surprising since urban explorers will literally do everything except like meth. Either way, the person decided to visit the place again a few days later, and when they did, the blood was mysteriously gone, but the high was still there. So who's coming in and out of this place and leaving messages in blood and then cleaning them up? Filling at number 3 slot is the Sprinter. This one comes from a now deleted Reddit user who went to explore an abandoned school in his town with a few of his friends. It was really hard to get into since the whole thing was boarded up, but they managed to climb up a pipe on the side of the school and get in through a window. They checked out the basement first that had been flooded, so it was very eerie just watching the stairs disappear underwater. They then checked out the gym, and as they were leaving it, they heard single footsteps coming from the other side of the gym door. Now that scared the shit out of them since this person or thing was blocking their roof exit, trajectory. The person sounded like they were just periodically walking around and then stopping, not even properly exploring. There was no light where they were coming from, which spooked the group even more. The group decided to hide out for a bit, and after seeing no one in the hallways, they decided to make a break for the roof exit door. As soon as they did, they heard someone sprinting after them, not even that far behind them. They ran the hell up those stairs and managed to get out without getting caught or killed by whoever was in there. Bro, why were you in there alone, you creep? Now at number 2 is quitting your job. This one was effed and came from Redditor Takausin, who said this happened around 13 years ago. As an electrician, him and his partner were sent out to this restoration project for a house that was built in the early 1900s. And when they got there, they were told some info about the house, like how it had 2 owners since it was built, and how the last one was this old woman who passed away a decade prior, and there was no one left in her family that could take it. So it was auctioned off to this young couple who wanted to modernize the whole place, which is very understandable. So they got to work installing things and had to open the attic hatch to find out it was very cramped as hell up there, and so only the tiniest worker could go up and replace the intake cable. Now the user was the smallest, obviously, so he went up there and could smell this old people smell, so he just assumed it was like her death smell, but it kept getting stronger. When he got up there fully, the stench was awful, and when he turned his flashlight on, to the left of him, he saw 5 cat carcasses, some partially eaten by insects or whatever eat corpses, and the others were just bones and rotten skin. The dude had just had his lunch break, so he threw up on the spot and actually quit his job after this project was done. That's scarring. And finally, at number 1 is the Asylum. This one actually scared me a bit in my seat, and it's not even like I sit at my desk in a room alone. There's people around me, I was just still scared because I'm small. Shared by Reddit user Daddy's Little Screamer, when she was 16, she and her friend decided to explore the abandoned asylum grounds near her house. Firstly, if I lived in a house near asylum grounds, I would have forced my parents to move. That's not happening from any angle. Though there was this one tower there that had been locked for what seemed like 5 ever, but that day it wasn't, and at the top of the tower there was a light on, and they both heard a dog barking. Thinking a dog maybe accidentally got itself stuck in the tower, they looked up and were shocked. There was a silhouette in the window for sure, but it was a person's silhouette, not a dog's. The person was the one barking. Without even going into the tower, shower, the girls ran away and all they heard was this person call out "bye now" in a creepy sing-song voice. At number 8, we have the Jefferson Barracks Badass, and yeah, that really is what people call him. Located in Missouri, the Jefferson Barracks is one of the most haunted military bases in the world, and I'm not even surprised considering how much death has taken place there. I mean, it used to be a military hospital, then it was a graveyard, and it was even a military staging area at one point, so there's a lot going on here. Either way, over the years, countless soldiers have been stationed there, and many have left their post completely because of one specific ghost. The barracks ghost was a guard who was shot during a munitions raid. He's extremely aggressive, like straight up just out to get you, and he actually challenges soldiers to fight him. Despite literally having a bullet in his head, he's out here just ready to square up, and soldiers are terrified of him. And if his presence isn't bad enough, the jail cells there are also haunted by disembodied voices, there's floating apparitions, and shadow people. Freaking great. Do they prepare you for that during training? Like, okay, your real human target is over there, but always watch your back for that freaking ghost who could get you too. Out you go. No. Filling on number 7 slot are the Six Devils. Having taken place back in 1836, this is actually one of the first ever military ghost encounters ever reported. General Juan Jose Andrade sent a group of troops to burn the soldiers that had died at the Alamo. Hours later, when the men returned, they were pale and shaken up and refused to go near the Alamo ever again. Now, they claimed it was guarded by 6 devils and that burning the bodies felt like being in hell itself, which is a pretty bold statement. People who have gone there since have reported seeing boys walking around in period clothing and hearing hooves on the ground when clearly there are no horses around. And not even including the war deaths that took place there have been multiple in the area as well. Other people have claimed seeing a man and young boy jumping off the Alamo mission to their death, but then vanishing into thin air. Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Now at number 6 are the Voices. This one's from Reddit user BloodSoup03, who said he was stationed in Iraq back in 2006 and it was his turn for guard duty. He was stationed in a massive compound area called Camp Baharia, in an area where Saddam Hussein's sons apparently women. Apparently, it's not confirmed. Now, the guard tower he was in was 2 stories high, and you had to use this metal spiral staircase to get up there. One night, halfway through his post, him and his friends suddenly heard this loud pair of footsteps sprinting up the stairs. Taken off guard, both of them grabbed their helmets, got their weapons ready, and waited. After a few minutes, he went around the corner to find absolutely no one. Now, he made his way downstairs and outside the tower to make sure no one was around, and no one was. There wasn't even any new vehicle outside that could have brought someone, and they didn't understand how they didn't see the person approach or even hear them open the tower door. Just wasn't making sense. Either way, he went back up to his partner, who was pale as hell, looking like he'd seen the devil himself. He asked the user what all the commotion was about and where the woman was. The user was like, "What are you talking about? What woman?" His comrade replied saying when he had gone downstairs, he had heard a scuffle between the user and a woman and heard a blood-curdling scream for help and then silence. The user went white and was like, "I didn't hear any of that. I didn't even see a woman." So, could it have been one of those women that Saddam Hussein's sons? Who knows? Possibly. Coming in at number 5 is Brother Bear. So this story is actually from World War I veteran Will Bird's memoir, Ghosts Have Warm Hands. Now, Will's brother was a war veteran as well who had died 2 years before he wrote the book. In this one, Bird said he was napping in a sheltered area when he suddenly woke up and saw the ghost of his brother Steve smiling down at him. He said Steve smiled at him and put his hands over his mouth as Will started screaming out of joy. What a nice story. This one does have a happy ending, don't worry guys. Now, he then told Will to get his gear and follow him. 5 minutes later, at a new spot, Will saw the place he was napping beforehand be blown to pieces by enemy fire. So despite being dead, Steve's ghost saved Will's life, and that's a true MVP brother if I ever saw one. Like, hello, Steve, you're doing great, sweetie. At number 4 is Hellman's Observation Point Rock. Locals and soldiers in Afghanistan alike believe the area is cursed and haunted by tragedies of the past. When Russia occupied Afghanistan, Point Rock was the place where Russian soldiers were executed by Afghani Mujahideen. And ever since then, when Marines are posted there, they have reported hearing voices speaking in Russian time and time again, even though there are never any Russians in the area. Lance Corporal said the place sucks and that you could stick a shovel in any part of the area and you'd you'd come up with bones. And it's not just Russian afterlife that the troops are scared of. Guards there have dealt with the voices of people crying, phantom gunfire, lights that appear and disappear with no source, and a little ghost girl that tries to lure troops into an isolated area to help her. And God knows what she does with them after that. I do have a few ideas. They're not nice. Don't follow that girl. Filling our number 3 slot are the eyes. This one's from Redditor Mace Windex, who was stationed at Fort Carson in 2015 during the Warhorse Strike. He said it was the last day of a 2-week field problem and all the troops were pretty tired, wanting cigarettes or coffee or something, and just ready to get the hell out of there. That night, they arranged a tactical movement to Gate 20 to secure a target. As they went off, the user was at the back of the line to make sure no one got left behind. They were in this valley, and at the bottom of it, there was a stream, and as soon as they crossed the stream, this disgusting stench just hit them. And it wasn't a skunk, a lot worse, the user said it could only be associated with the odor of meat gone bad. And it wasn't uncommon to find dead animals in the area, but since they'd been training there for 2 weeks, they would have found whatever it was already, and with the pungency of the smell, they wouldn't have ignored it, and I quote, "It was like some advanced decomposition." I feel like that's something I'd say. Either way, the user went on to say he usually liked being alone on his patrols and had been followed in the past. And when you get that gut feeling you're being watched, you just know. The user decided to look back around them just to make sure, and through his night vision, he saw a pair of gleaming eyes in the trees. But as soon as he saw the first pair, he saw another, and it was standing at like 7 feet tall. So what the hell did those eyes even belong to? The user freaked out, but none of the troops had any live ammo, so they couldn't investigate. So they just got the F out of there ASAP Rocky. As would anyone. I would do the same. I wouldn't be there to begin with. That was a rough one. Not gonna lie, guys. Now at number 2 is the sailor. This one's from Reddit user Isa, who was a newly reported sailor, and this happened while he was in the engine room of a submarine while on mid-watch. The engine room lower level of the submarine had many narrow passages throughout it, and all of them passed through the center. He came down one of the ladders and saw someone 15 feet in front of him walk and then turn the corner. And he was 100% sure he saw him. I mean, he'd heard his footsteps, he saw the back of his head. It seemed pretty damn real. But there were problems with this sighting. Firstly, the person he saw was wearing utilities, which made no sense since utilities had been phased out of use 3 years prior. Secondly, there was only one other person awake at the time, and he was the one waiting at the top of the ladder for the user. Initially, he didn't want to mention the incident and blamed it on sleep deprivation, but 4 months later, he got his closure. The user was out at sea on a different submarine with a fellow sailor who had served on his previous ship as well. The man told the user the story of a sailor who had committed an engine room lower level in his utilities a decade beforehand. Great, don't we just love seeing dead sailors when new on the job? We love that. Love it. Great first day at work. And finally, at number 1 is the Black Smoke. So this story comes from Jerry Aberdeen, who was stationed at an air base in Afghanistan when this event took place. Military personnel were patrolling the area as always, and they all spotted a large group of angry people coming towards the base trying to ambush it. They started climbing the walls of the station, and all hands were called to defend the base. They opened fire, and many people were killed, but one man who died let out something. Aberdeen